This mysterious story begins with the protagonist's fierce battle with a fiery dragon. The infernal monster, destroying everything around it, tries to attack the magician in front of it. Even with all his strength, the man cannot defeat the snake, and it furiously attacks the enemy. Lin Zichen, the best sorcerer cultivator in the whole world, simply cannot believe that he could die at the hands of some mutant beast. However, he does not hold back and falls at the feet of the enemy with serious injuries and screams. Suddenly, two figures appear out of nowhere, and the main character, crawling with his last strength, begs for help. However, Ji and Ji Hui only watch the miserable Lin Zichen with arrogance and disgust. Gently taking the hero by the hand, the beauty notes that she never thought he would actually run after the fish pendant at her request, so the man is truly an example of a good person. TZE defiantly takes a gold ring as a farewell gift and swears that she will not forget the magician's kindness. In desperation, Lin reaches out to his beloved and nervously asks what she means. The frivolous girl quickly approaches Ji Hui and kisses him passionately, causing the protagonist to fall into agony. The blonde announces that they are together now, and the magician is just trash on their path of love, so it's time to get rid of him. The man can't believe it because he treated these two like family, and they so easily dared to betray him. For a moment, Lin Zichen loses touch with reality, and the medallion around the sorcerer's neck begins to emit a strange red energy that envelops everything around. In the morning, a noisy alarm clock actively shouts that it's time to get up, which quickly puts you under a steely blow. The hero is surprised that this place looks like his old dorm room, although it is not what he should have seen after dying from the blow of the boss of the Ascension world. Even more strange is that his storage ring and Danfu have disappeared somewhere. Looking at the portable wall, the boy sees an image with the date August 7th. With tears in his eyes, the magician exclaims that he would never have believed his luck, because he was reborn 10 years and 1 day before the start of the game. The man thoughtfully suggests that he was able to be reborn through a fish pendant artifact that fell from a burning dragon, because he had heard about such a method in a legend. It was also lucky that Lin had thought of not putting the pendant in a ring, because those scoundrels would have definitely stolen it. Going into the bathroom, the hero reminds himself that he loved Sei for almost 10 years, and as a result, she went to his best friend. The magician's fists clench at the thought that these people stole all the necessary artifacts and abandoned him as prey for a monster. However, the heavens have not yet turned their backs on Lin, so the hero confidently swears to all the gods that he will destroy these traitors. Suddenly, the phone vibrates on the table, and picking up the receiver, the reincarnated man greets the girl who is calling him. A friend, while working out at the gym, asks her husband to prepare himself mentally and not to be scared because she has something important to tell him. Zichen knows that 10 years ago she told Guoji about the deception, but he didn't believe it, which is why the friends even quarreled and didn't communicate for a long time. Without realizing it, the hero asks the interlocutor for forgiveness, which is why the girl is very surprised, and having come to his senses, Lin changes the topic. The irritated athlete throws the dumbbell and shouts that she has no time for jokes because she saw Zi kissing a strange man. However, the hero calmly replies with an ironic smile that he understands everything because he already knows the truth. The girl thinks that her friend, as usual, is not taking her words seriously, but the guy just wants to tell her something more important. The athlete is scared by how Zichen has taken everything, and she even wonders with concern if everything is really okay with him. Ignoring her excitement, Lin asks if her friend has heard of the game 8 Wastes, and she confirms, because she has seen it in every commercial. Imagining the gaming world outside the window, the hero says that he wants to become an esports athlete, and thinks that this game is much more than anyone can imagine. It will encompass the entire world, and in 5 years will completely absorb the earth and merge with it, and all abilities and artifacts will become reality. Therefore, the earlier you join the game, the further you can advance, although the athlete is a little shocked by this news. However, the girl says that Zichen is quite skilled and believes that he has a good future. Laziness, upon hearing the approval, announces that she is going to rent a room in 2 days and devote all her free time to the 8th Wasteland, which is why the athlete is about to end the call. Frightened by such an abrupt ending, the hero quickly grabs the phone and asks his girlfriend to wait. The guy sheepishly reports that the game requires equipment, and his accounts have been empty since last night. This drives the interlocutor into a rage, and she shouts that she warned him and there was no need to give such an expensive birthday present to Guoji. Saying that Lin now has to live in a cursed world of his own making, the athlete says goodbye and hangs up. The man exhales in disappointment and rhetorically wonders if he could have been reborn a day earlier. Suddenly, a message arrives with a transfer of funds, where the girl says that these are her subscription funds for several years at the gym. She will need them very soon, so Zeiken should hurry up, because it will easily replace a punching bag for training. While recording a voice message, the guy happily advises not to worry, because he will do everything in the best way possible. After waiting for midnight, he goes to bed and checks his watch when his ring starts to glow red. Bringing the decoration to his retina, Lin reads the information and is transported to the launch of the open beta test of the 8 Wastelands. And 10 years later, the hero finds himself again in the place where all his most secret dreams once began. Standing in the crowd, he watches the steaming maiden, whom everyone greets with applause and calls Sister Nuva. In fact, this is the first contact with artificial intelligence, and at first everything seems simple, but you need to be very careful. The men in the group begin to whistle frivolously and invite the beauty to become the wife of one of them. Zeiken awkwardly considers them fools because the crowd's behavior only angered Lady Nuva. Artificial intelligence menacingly drags surprised people into a dark portal, and at best, a dungeon awaits them, and at worst, a constant decrease in characteristics. Lin, respectfully approaching the ruler, tries to behave accordingly because this is the only way to a blessing. The mistress of this world happily notes that this mortal is different from all the others. She craves an answer as to whether the player wishes to embark on the path of cultivation and become immortal. The hero introduces himself and confirms Lady Nuva's assumption, asking for help. Having used its powers, the artificial intelligence calmly agrees because a good fate awaits the boy and it is time to receive talent. In a past life, Lin was gifted with business genius, although it is not a very useful skill that loses its relevance almost instantly. However, now Zeiken has enough understanding of the 8 Wastelands to gain the necessary critical mass, even considering the poor start. Absorbing the energy flows, the boy is surprised to realize that he possesses a new skill called Turn of Fate. After reading the description, it becomes clear that this talent is completely broken and unnecessary. However, the hero is sure that the reward is worth it because magic has not only disadvantages, but also advantages. Now, after granting the talent, Madame Nuva instructs the player to choose an avatar. At first glance, the models are no different, but they have a huge gap in characteristics. Therefore, Lin chooses a multiple charismatic avatar because last time the guy took the ugliest character. Only after starting did he realize that appearance directly affects game interaction and that it is very disruptive. The greater the attractiveness, the greater the chance of receiving tasks and help from players or starting joint cultivation. By updating the skin, Lin decides that he will make up for everything lost and what he missed in the previous interpretation. Lady Nuva, unfolding a map of the virtual world, offers to choose a starting location. A scroll appears before the magician with an island on which there are 4 parts that represent the classes. Yuning is magic cultivation, Yuehua teaches medicine, Huafeng cultivates the body, and Mushin develops sword skills. The core foundation is responsible for the limit of body and sword cultivation, and the spirit is responsible for magic and medical cultivation, which is why knowledge of skills is so important. Now all of Zeiken's stats are at their maximum, meaning he will easily become the strongest, but it's worth doing a non-magical upgrade, as he is helpless in duels. Yes, he chose this skill only because Guoji liked the strength, but in his new life the boy decides on his own. That is why the hero confidently chooses Musian, and says that the strongest should always be ready to confidently accept the fight. It is the swordsman cultivators who have the greatest power in confrontations and are most suited to this world. For this reason, Lin absorbs this gift and hopes that light winds will accompany him on the path of the sword. The first starting location is the settlement in Musian, where other players admire the realism of the game and try to find tasks. Seeing so many people, the hero nostalgically recalls the first time he got here 10 years ago. Meanwhile, in the middle of the square, the beginners see an old man and think he's part of a program that has some kind of quest. Life-trained Jishin heads towards the sword sect, because such a prominent character will definitely not help him in any way. Others may not be in a hurry, and the hero is not too worried, as he has already learned the route too well. Suddenly, a woman's figure appears behind the boy, asking the young gentleman to stay. This surprises Lin, and he turns around with interest and sees Queen Yan, the owner of the local atelier, in front of him. Everyone admires the beauty of the character and the player himself, while the girl, flirting, offers the warrior her sincere help. Coming closer, the owner of the atelier hugs Zichin and tells her that her husband died 5 years ago, and Queen Yan is very lonely. Lin is simply shocked that the artificial intelligence approached without invitation and solely because of his charisma. After all, such a pretty lady couldn't talk to him, but if the hero agreed, he would be able to cultivate faster. Maybe this is another gift from heaven, which is why Lin is simply unable to refuse Queen Yan. Zyken explains that he already has plans for today, but he will definitely ask the beauty for a task when he has time. The crowd is going crazy over the fact that an artificial intelligence was able to fall in love with a player while he awkwardly runs away from the excessive attention. A warrior cannot waste his precious time on all sorts of trial tests from the atelier hostess. After all, a real chance for a beginner in the form of a single workshop is right in front of Lin. At the exit from the room, a novice runs out and warns that it is not worth going to this silent blacksmith, and the hero thanks him for the advice, but continues on his way. The other participants discuss among themselves that it is better to look for tasks on the outskirts of the settlement while the boy heads to the master. The blacksmith is not in a good mood today and is simply sweating from the fact that one of the swords is not giving in at all. After hearing the conversations of the newcomers, Zyken thinks they are just stupid because this man is one of the main artificial intelligences in the game. Grabbing an air blower, the hero increased the amount of flame in the steel melting furnace, and it turned out that he was right. The blacksmith exclaimed enthusiastically that the heat was really not enough, and the temperature needed to be increased. Then the master calmly continues his work, hammering the engraved iron with all his might. Finally, everything works out for him, and the man happily raises the finished sword for Zyken to look at. The blacksmith thanks him for the help, because his assistant is away today, and there is no one to watch the temperature of the furnace. Because Lin has done important work, the master allows him to choose one of his swords for a day as a reward. The warrior is cunning because he knew about this opportunity, which gives a huge advantage, although beginners usually bypass it. The guy stands against the wall with a weapon and carefully examines the products in the workshop. As a result, he chooses an ordinary iron sword with third-level power that shines like gold. The artificial intelligence praises its savior's choice and wants to offer him one condition. If Zyken helps get 10 pairs of green snake claws from the bamboo forest in one day, he will receive a gift, and the warrior happily agrees. When Lin comes out of the forge, the newcomers are surprised at how he got the weapon and also want to do something similar. The warrior decides to joke and says that the main goal is to move the master with a ballad about love, because he has just broken up with his girlfriend and is terribly sad. For a minute, the players are surprised by the simplicity of the task, but 5 seconds later they are already up and running into the room. While frivolous boys try to compose ballads, the cunning hero embarks on the path of cultivation. The blacksmith, tired of the annoyances of the newcomers, is already trembling with anger and quietly orders everyone to fail. However, people think it's just some kind of mystery and are collectively looking for ways to solve it. However, a second later they are thrown out of the workshop under the threats of an angry man and realize that Zyken has tricked them all. Meanwhile, the warrior heads through a darkened bamboo forest while being hunted by azure snake monsters. One of them decides to attack the prey and has no idea of the full power of this player. Drawing his sword, Lin used his new talent and as he attacked, shouted that he would take the life of this green snake. Destroying the monster gave the man a nice 3 points of experience, which is already pretty good for a start. And as a result, he also received a bow, a new sword, and a snakeskin pouch, although the number of equipment drops in the 8 wastes is extremely small. Taking the bag in his hands, Zyken is surprised by how much he received and assumes that it is due to a new innate talent. Having hidden the prizes, the guy decides to deal with everything later, because now the main thing is to get clicks. Rushing to attack the other snakes, the warrior wants to see what else might fall out and quickly destroys 4 monsters. This time he is lucky, and in addition to 10 pairs of clicks, Lin receives more than 100 poisoned arrows, as well as a bunch of copper coins, as a good reward. Happily grabbing everything he received, the hero heads to the workshop to complete the mission. The busy blacksmith does not immediately notice Zyken, who has brought everything he needs into the room. Having meticulously evaluated all the pairs of clicks in the bag, the master praises the result. After thanking the warrior for his work, the man hands over a mysterious letter as retribution. The hero is surprised to note that this is not just a message, but an invitation to the sword sect, which is the most difficult task for beginners. Lin asks the blacksmith if anyone else has received such a letter, but he denies it. As the warrior thought, these fools can't figure out how to get the tasks, so there's no need to waste your time on them and join the sect instead. The hero stands in the center of town and announces an auction for his first snake bow, using the wedding as an excuse to make a quick sale. The players immediately run up to him and start bargaining, but no one can offer more than 2,000. Suddenly a hand is raised in the crowd, and someone in a female voice offers as much as 5,000 for the bow. Everyone looks at the newcomer and tries to figure out who he is and what guild he is from. Meanwhile, the buyer convinces her that her offer is more advantageous because she can pay immediately and exclusively in cash. Lin is already willing to agree, since you don't get such a good offer every day, and the weapons he offers are mediocre. However, their bidding is interrupted by an arrogant man who offers a price 1,000 higher and attracts the attention of those present. The warrior introduces himself as Wang Jinghao, head of the Wanshi Guild, and wants to gain the newcomer's trust. He thinks that getting the snake bow right after the server opens is quite difficult, so he needs to hurry up and get Lin's attention. No one even expected that the guild head could come here, and Zichen himself would quickly introduce himself because in his past life, Wang Jinghao had refused. As soon as the hero topped the top 10, the boss came to lure him to his side, but the guy changed his mind and became Van's enemy. Jinghao says he heard about Lin's wedding and is willing to give as much money as needed for the friendly gesture. The warrior quickly refuses, as he is only willing to sell his equipment and thinks it was not worth lying for profit. Wang Jinghao runs closer to Jichen and calls him very capable, suggesting that he join his guild because they are lacking such a bow. The girl who was supposed to buy the weapon from the beginning interrupts her head scratching and loudly shouts out the sum of 70,000. However, the warrior is not satisfied with this turn of events and offers a much larger sum, but the character is no less than him. Lin, leaning against the bulletin board, simply calmly watches their skirmish and waits for a more favorable deal. He thinks he can use this beauty for his own purposes later, since she is not afraid to contradict Wang Jinghao. The latest price offered by the girl is 500,000, and the guild head begins to panic. The man reminds them of his position and warns them not to humiliate him, while the crowd marvels at the strange behavior of the wealthy gamblers. After all, this weapon for beginners is definitely not worth the price, and the character even challenged Vansha's head for it. The beauty doesn't care about the opponent's position, because she offers a better deal, and this braggart is simply nothing compared to her mistress. Angry, Wang Jinghao decides to leave and blames himself for such a mess, because he made a fool of himself in front of others. Lin quickly stops brother Wang and asks him to wait, because it's time to implement his plan. If a warrior buys the weapon for 500 million, it will be his, including Zeiken's services, for a fairly long period. The girl is speechless at such a statement, but her mind is becoming more and more interested in playing this game with every passing minute. He announces to the entire square that if brother Lin has any problems, he can contact him at any time. The hero knows that now was the best time to make an impression, because in the future he will be able to spin them all as he pleases. Since the girl is so beautiful, Wang Jinghao decides to leave her alone and hopes that she will visit his guild in the future. Ziken is amused that this selfish person paid so much money to buy face and will only realize it when he uses the bow. The number of arrows is limited, so they will soon disappear, and most importantly, he will spend a lot of time using weapons for beginner tasks. When the guild leader leaves, the indignant girl attacks Lin because he promised to give the bow to the highest bidder. From the outside, the hero looks like a little puppy, so he can go and bring slippers for Wang Jinghao. It seems that the guy has pissed off the beauty, so he has to find a way to fix everything, and he even knows how. Meanwhile, a group of women rush into the wild boar forest to hunt, to vent their anger and bring something back to their mistress. The leader among all orders to split up and try to destroy 2 wild boars. The women quickly do as they are told and scatter through the forest, leaving the beauty alone. Lin appears out of the dust behind the girl, so the return of an unpleasant acquaintance makes the girl a little nervous. Upon returning, she calmly asks what Ziken forgot here, although she is not in the mood to talk to a mean merchant. However, he doesn't seem to notice her mood and swears that it won't take much time, but they definitely need to discuss something. The beauty wants to put the warrior on the right path because she believes that Wang Jinghao has managed to blind him with his sect. Meanwhile, the hero happily exclaims that he has some top-secret news and is ready to sell it for only 500,000. This information could help the girl's guild, but although she is embarrassed, she is still convinced that he can give this news to the head of Vanshi. Lin brushes it off because he's simply using Jinghao, and the guy himself is a free person who wants to earn money at any time. The hero is convinced that he can cooperate with the lady in the future, but she is alarmed by such a quick change of mind from the cunning player. To be sure, the warrior displays his account on the screen, and the beauty, tempted by such an offer, cannot just lose it. Therefore, the character confidently buys the information, and Lin is happy because he received a whole million from the very beginning of the game, although in reality they lose their value. Zichen, coughing into his fist, announces that he should take the task from the blacksmith, to which Madame shouts that he is fooling her. Just in case the girl takes up arms, perhaps the hero came on behalf of Wang Jinghao, and then she will simply finish him off. Lin explains that they were doing everything wrong from the very beginning and should have just blown the furnace out after the main line. If the lady doesn't believe it, she can send one of her people, but it must remain a secret because the information will become disinterested. Taking a letter out of his pocket, the guy adds that the main thing is not even the task, but the reward that awaits them. The girl knows that this is an invitation from the sword sect, and only after receiving it can she find out about the entrance and location. Lin ends there because from now on everything depends on them, but Madame, screaming, wonders why the hero decided to share with her. Zichen naively replies that he has no idea, but more than anything, it's because of the kindness and attractiveness of his acquaintance. Surprisingly, these words make the beauty blush, and even lose her speech for a moment, but they are interrupted by familiar ladies. Someone from the side shouts and begs Sister Wanlin for help, and when the beauty turns her head, she sees a huge boar running towards her. The shocked warrior watches her friends as they try their best to escape the beast. The women wonder why this boar is so much bigger than the others and assume they've met the boss and it's over. Sister Wanlin orders everyone to quickly flee the forest because they don't have enough people to fight the most important thing. Stepping forward, Lin says that they were lucky to encounter the biggest monster, but if no one wants to destroy it, then he will do it. The women are shocked that a newcomer is going to challenge the Boar King without anyone's help. Halfway through, the warrior remembers that he sold his bow and arrows, so he asks the beauty for permission to borrow his sword. Wang Lin easily throws down his own weapon and, wishing him luck, orders the hero not to kill himself and to return victorious. Drawing his sword from its scabbard, Jingchen thanks him and, using his new innate talent, charges at the beast. One of the girls notes that the guy is deliberately acting so impudent in front of their friend, and they would be a good couple. Such thoughts make Wanlin blush very much, so she yells at the warrior, ordering her to shut up, but this only causes laughter. Meanwhile, the hero actively lures the boss to him and tries to attack to determine the weakest spot. If the boy had known he would encounter a boar, he would have waited to sell his bow and arrows, because with their help, it would have been much faster. All attempts to overcome the attacker seem futile, as the boy only dodges and cannot approach the beast. Laziness decides that it's time to strike at the weakest point, and then the boss of this territory will lose a lot of blood. However, such a struggle may prove futile, so it's worth a little trickery to win. Zichen starts abruptly from the spot, calling on the boar to run after him, and the women think that the warrior has already managed to surrender. One of the characters who laughed at Wanlin thinks the handsome boy is cute, but the frightened rescuer cannot escape. The warrior says that no one asked Lin to fight for them. Now Zichen will get his comeuppance, and will no longer brag. But not everything is that simple, and the hero has a plan, so he rushes towards the cliff that limits the zone with all his might. The swordmaster pushes off the wall and excitedly makes the Boar King crash into it. The boss, without thinking about the consequences, doesn't have time to stop and breaks the horn against a stone while the life force is oozing out of it. The women are shocked by the whole situation and try to understand what Lin is up to. The beast can barely stand on its hooves, but it is still looking for Zichen, who is successfully choosing the time for his last attempt. The boy rushes into battle and knocks half of the king's energy out, using his innate gift. The boar falls for a second but does not lose his anger, and the hero is afraid that the enemy is still in this world. The boss explodes and attacks the warrior with his only remaining horn, but Lin manages to jump back up. The beast runs in circles in agony, and losing its mind, crashes into the rock once again, cutting off its last weapon. Zichen jumps on top of the defeated enemy and raises the sword blazing with energy, given to him by the blacksmith. The boy screams goodbye to the boar and takes its life in front of the women. Suddenly, flames begin to appear from the sky, raising the warrior to the 70th level of development and beginning the chi purification phase. His talent, Twist of Fate, worked against the law of heaven, doubling all general stat points. This breakthrough means Lin's entry onto the path of an immortal cultivator, although the man himself did not expect it to happen so quickly. As a reward, Zichen received a new talent, Seeds of Blood and Ki, which would increase vitality by 10% and make the hero twice as strong as a beginner. The program is interested in whether the warrior wants to hide his name, because a global system update will occur soon. Without even suspecting the consequences, the swordmaster frivolously refuses. expecting quick fame. A message about the player's achievements spreads over the city, and the beginners who were fooled by Lin immediately recognize him. Wanlin also saw the update and happily noted that she now knew the name of her savior. Gifts appear before the hero in the form of a new sword, a shining staff, and a book of emptiness, which is quite a lot for such a boss. Taking the bag in his hands, Zyken hears that trouble will begin in 30 minutes, and at that moment, a thunderstorm darkens the sky. The warrior understands that this is a side effect of the twist of fate, but if he doesn't escape in time, the soul will be instantly scattered by the lightning strike. Therefore the guy, covered in sweat from fear, hurries to the sect because they will definitely be able to help there. Vanlin appears on his way, offering to become friends, as in the future she will gladly redeem all the rewards received. Laziness ignores her sweet tone and, abruptly turning aside, throws out his communication code in farewell. The embarrassed woman finds it strange to see her acquaintance running away, because they are definitely no more terrifying than the Boar King. Zyken barely manages to reach the sect, mentally begging for help to get rid of this disaster. The warrior shouts to the entire courtyard that he is ready to become the most loyal disciple and embark on the path of the sword, just to survive. The local cultivators step aside and wonder why this guy is running so fast, knocking everyone off their feet. Suddenly, the sky above the sect also turns dark, and lightning cuts through the clouds to the screams of the disciples. A mysterious lady appears above the men, calmly wondering what the commotion is. It turns out that this is the same legendary sect leader who suggests that one of the disciples made a sudden breakthrough, which is why the thunderstorm occurred. The great masters present are also interested in the occurrence of the disaster, but they do not see its cause. The cultivator's thoughts are interrupted by a terrified Lin Jingchen, who begs the head to accept him as a disciple immediately. However, lightning, stretching out like tree branches, interrupts the warrior's chaotic screams, forcing him to freeze. Extending an invitation to the sect, the hero realizes that with his current abilities, he will not be able to resist the power of heaven. All that remains is to pray for help, and it unexpectedly comes from the head, which creates a magical dome. Surprised, Lazy thinks that he doesn't want to start all over again, because he will only lose time and all the opportunities he has gained. The powerful of this world are shocked by the novice's skill, and believe that he will become a great master in the future. Screams are heard from everywhere, with which the participants honor the genius, and everyone wants to see such a strong player. Elder Chu Yue runs up to Jichen and swears that he will give all his resources and help with the practice, even though he has no right to teach men. She even knocks on Chingsun's head because he has enough students and it's time to share, which surprises the old man very much. The hero confirms his suspicions that there are many important people in the sect, so he can find a profitable offer for himself. He'll have to pretend to be an actor. He can't worry too much because he'll ruin the elder's first impression. The heated discussion is unexpectedly interrupted by the legendary head of the sect, who persuades the warrior to join her. The elders, shocked by the woman's behavior, said that the lady had not accepted students before and had only now made an exception to the rules. The head solemnly approaches Lin and invites him to practice under her wing, learning new techniques. The system highlights a message containing information about Len Feiyan and the upcoming treaty between the warriors. Instantly assessing the situation, the hero falls to his knees and, folding his palms in respect, swears that he will become the most loyal disciple. Len Feiyan orders him to follow her, while Zyken rejoices that he has received the most charming teacher from the first day in the sect. The Sword Palace is one of the most peaceful places where Lin will now practice and later also receive equipment. Ordering the warrior to come to the main hall in an hour, the woman leaves, leaving the hero near the chambers. The player considers Len Feiyan to be sidelined and sets out to gain as much of the president's attention as possible. After an hour, for some reason, no one showed up to see the player, so he decides to go searching on his own. There are quite a few mysterious passages inside the Sword Sect Palace, and Lin wonders what other secret places there are. After a few minutes of improvised exploration, an unusual and exquisite palace appears before the warrior. Confidently entering the room, the boy hears screams from the head of the sect, who had just taken a shower and was not expecting visitors. Realizing that this is the master's house, Zyken recoils in fear and tries to rectify the situation. He begins to beg for mercy, but the angry Len Feiyan attacks him with all her strength, taking away most of his life force. Pulling up the sheet, the ashamed sect head asks who allowed Lin to invade her chambers. The beaten student explains that no one came to practice, so he mistakenly entered the palace while looking around. Taking out a shiny stone, the woman admits that the ignorant are never blamed and throws the object at the surprised newcomer. From now on, the swordsman will never enter this building again without Len Feiyan's order, because the laws are the same for everyone. It turned out to be the Xuanping pill, which within 5 minutes can increase all attributes by 30 points during battle and by 3,000 after. Grateful for his mentor's generosity, the warrior leaves the chambers and respectfully bows before the door. He's still cunning, so he leaves the medication for worse times to have a backup option. Footsteps are heard behind him, and the man sees Nan Gunyue, the new elder, who has come to help him settle into the sect. Jichin shows respect, which pleases the guide very much, because she likes people who are familiar with traditions. The girl is currently in the late stage of cultivation and has to look after Lin, although the system informs that they will be friends from the first meeting. The hero sees the effect he has on the cultivator and calls his sister a beauty and swears that he is infatuated with her. Niangunyu is not used to such direct flirting and admits that she did not expect her brother to be so flattering. The swordsman says a proverb that improvement must be diligent, not just skillful. Suddenly running up to his mentor, the boy admits that it is better to flatter than to work hard every day. Nyan laughs, and their interaction level increases to 15 points, and Lin likes that it is much easier with her than with his head. Depending on the level of relationship between players and the program, hidden features may vary. It is even possible to become a pair of cultivators and begin dual cultivation, but it is not that easy, and Zikin's previous attempts have failed. Suddenly the warrior feels sick for no reason, which greatly frightens the elder, who immediately rushes to help, but doesn't know what to do. She thinks the guy is injured and actively runs over him, but the swordsman knows that if he doesn't take medicine, he won't recover for a long time. It's a good thing that the new friend noticed this, and now we can take advantage of the situation and see what Nyan has to offer. Zaikin eloquently recounts the entire story of being taken to the master's palace and being brutally beaten. Shocked by the news, Gunyu slowly says that it is all entirely her fault because the sect head asked to take the disciple to the room. However, the novel the girl was reading was so interesting that the beauty lost track of time and accidentally stayed late. Because of this, Nian hastily gives the interlocutor medicine for Ki and asks him to take it quickly, while the swordsman rejoices at his new useful find. The embarrassed Gunyue continues to blame herself, even though the warrior says that he allowed himself a little too much. The mentor calls the player incredibly kind, and her affection level increases to a pleasant conversation. As compensation, the girl gives a jade pendant that increases defense and creates a spiritual shield to repel attacks. She happily praises her gift and hopes that it will be useful to her ward during her studies with the master. Lin is really excited because this pendant is the best spiritual equipment, and Nian has many more similar treasures. Gunyuye calls the hero after him for a tour of the hall, where all the necessary equipment for beginners is located. Zikin quietly takes pride in his ability to get out of any situation and understands that programs should be treated like people. Players find themselves in an Earth-level spiritual energy collection array. Meditating here allows you to absorb power much faster. Not everyone here practices, so the beauty is a little jealous of the student who got everything from scratch. Under normal circumstances, beginning players can meditate anywhere, but their level will increase more slowly. Lin didn't think he would have access to a spiritual energy collection array. Perhaps the master had even created it for the guy himself. Slapping the swordsman on the shoulder, Gunyue announces that she has completed her mission and says goodbye to her little brother. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Zaikin decides to meditate for 3 hours to reach a full level of chi purification. Unexpectedly, the system announces that for today, the time spent in the 8 wastelands is over, and the man is transported back to reality. Picking up his phone, he checks his messages and sees a bank statement showing a huge amount. The hero is blown away by his coolness because he was able to earn 1.5 million in 5 hours, which will completely change his life. In the morning, a girl rides a motorcycle along city roads through residential neighborhoods. Having reached her destination, she parks and elegantly takes off her helmet. It turns out that it is her friend Linya, whom everyone already knows. The athlete decided to visit her friend right then and there and went up to the guy's apartment. The beauty is indignant that Zaikin called so early, because she was just about to go for a morning jog. The hero has just rented a new apartment, although the rent here is quite high, about 5,000 or 6,000 a month. Approaching her friend, the athlete says that the guy doesn't waste time and actively uses her money for the gym. Hearing the frivolous confirmations, the girl skillfully rolls over on the couch and mounts her friend on top. She grabs Lin by the neck and jokingly starts to block the air, shouting that he has no right to take advantage of her kindness so rashly. Previously, the beauty warned that the hero would become her punching bag, and now she is actively proving this to the player's plaintive squeak. Unexpectedly, the guest feels a strange rise in the thigh area, and an awkward silence arises between the friends. However, the girl doesn't wait long and, having recovered, prepares a new attack on the guy, calling him a pervert. Their argument is interrupted by shouts from behind the door, announcing that the chair has been delivered. The victim asks the beauty to get off, explaining at the same time that he earned a good amount of money in the game, which he spent on equipment. Lin believes that this will be enough to pay off the debt, but his friend will not be able to take the gift to the dormitory and home because of her father, so he suggests that they live together for a while. The delighted girl is no longer angry and runs to take pictures of the chair, while Zeiken returns to the game to earn some money. During the training, the master praises the student because his level of improvement is truly the best she has ever seen. The hero admits that he doesn't know how to make a breakthrough in purifying qi and mentally hopes that Len Feiyan has special elixirs. The woman truly possesses the qi-gathering pill, and only she can advance to the middle stage of purification. Stretching out his hands, the warrior thanks in advance because such medicines are only available in the higher sects, but the mentor is in no hurry. The woman brutally breaks the drug with the words that a strong person has not only a high level, but also experience in battles. Recalling previous experience, the warrior notes that greenhouse flowers are unworthy of everything because only trees that grow in a storm can become strong. The sect leader is surprised by the swordsman's insight and sees that he is a little calmer than she expected. Laziness is elated that he was able to win the master's favor because he previously thought it was impossible. Zeiken quickly drives away unnecessary fantasies because he wants to become the best cultivator, not a slave to love. Len Feiyan orders the student to go to the mission hall and choose a difficult level purification task for himself, after which he will receive a pill. The woman also gives the hero the Sword Sect Sutra, which all students must learn, because the more one practices the mind, the greater the benefit. The guy sincerely thanks him, because to master this technique, sect members must perform special assignments, but he doesn't need to. While walking around the outer hall, Lin notices that many beginners have already joined. Although the mission with the letter is hidden, there are other ways to get it, and soon there will be even more people in the sect. However, the experienced swordsman no longer cares because in time he became the master's main student. Behind them, a girl shouts to Sister Wanlin that this is really the handsome boy who saved them from the boar. It seems that the woman used the purchased information correctly, and now Zeiken has a large number of useful acquaintances. During the conversation, my friend mentioned that she also chose the sword sect because of her love for this elegant weapon. Without listening, the hero leaves, citing business, and his friend Vanlin says that it will be difficult to get hold of such a weirdo. The beauty denies that she has any interest in the warrior and listens to the mockery from her friend because she wanted to see how the girl would run after the guy. The swordswomen also complain about the large number of tasks to obtain the sutra, while Lin is actively examining it in the square. The artificial intelligence calls the next participant, and Zeiken realizes that his time has come. He respectfully greets them and informs them that he has arrived to receive a mission on behalf of the head of the sect. The leader invites the brother to choose, but to prioritize what he is most confident in or what he needs. The simplest task is collecting deadly herbs, but apart from gaining experience, there is zero benefit and it is a waste of time. The missions at the next level are more difficult, for example, all kinds of monster hunting, but the combat characteristics are weak. The hero chooses a special task in the city of Fentiu, which in theory with the use of a sutra will help him get ahead. The point of the hellish mission is to restore the sect's lost secret techniques, and the reward includes rare items. The girl advises the participant to think because the opponent's level of qi purification is much higher, and the statute states that a student cannot reselect an impossible task. Laziness calmly continues on its way while the audience waits in shock for the warrior's impending failure. In addition, there are critically few traces of the murder of Zhang Hai, who owned the technique, and the criminal is hidden like a needle in a haystack. However, the cunning Zeiken is already familiar with the matter, so the swordsman immediately finds the key in the form of a brothel. The ladies present, upon seeing the immortal from the sword sect, rush towards the highly respected guest, inviting him inside. Lin approaches the scene where one of the 8 wasteland speakers is delivering the news, like a reporter in real life. This character knows all the daily stories and messages, so if you listen carefully to him, you can find clues. The journalist shouts sharply that Zhang Hai, a disciple of the sword sect, was destroyed today, and his killer is a strong cultivator. The swordsman gloats that he easily learned about the cruel Zhou Hao, who is in the final stage of chi purification. When the meeting ends, Lin hurriedly runs after the man and announces that she wants to buy one new item. The warrior is no novice, so he knows perfectly well that information requires a hefty sum, which the reporter confirms. After throwing money at the interlocutor, the guy asks where Zhou Hao is now, and gets a message to look for him in the flower tower. The announcer is ready to tell something else important for 5 spiritual stones, and this greatly intrigues the hero. For such generosity, the greedy journalist reports that Zhou Hao has an older brother who is in a powerful foundation stage. Meanwhile, the killer is quietly having fun in the flower tower of the city of Fancy, where beauties invite guests to drink. As they leave the room, the women ask Mr. Zhou to come again because they cannot live without his presence. The drunken master orders everyone to wait and line up one by one next time before he appears. Looking out from behind the pillar, Lin realizes that he will find his target and begins to stealthily stalk the enemy. Zhou Hao calmly heads towards the forest, trying to stay upright and not even suspecting the attack. Suddenly a shadow appears from the side, and Zeiken says that he is the one who most desires the death of the vile criminal. By gathering energy, Zhou Hao is confident that some kid in the early stage of chi purification will not be able to defeat him. So the man shouts that the warrior is simply tired of living and instantly rushes into the attack, using his sword. The player easily turns away, which greatly surprises the attacker, who continues his attempts again and again. He even uses his fighting techniques, but doesn't leave a single scratch or mark on Lina. Now Zeiken activates the blade and successfully wounds the criminal, who does not understand where the novice gets such strength from. The swordsman confidently declares that he is not the strong one, but the killer of the weak, although this is all thanks to his practice with the sutra. The enemy has long since switched to using dark power, but the hero still manages to defend himself. To make the task easier for himself, he uses the spiritual shield from the jade pendant that his sister gave him. The skill turns out to be so powerful that it instantly repels all nearby objects near Lin. The player is very pleased with this find, which Zhou Hao, who considered his opponent weak, also did not expect. The enraged and weakened criminal orders the equipment to be given up in exchange for his life, and the swordsman refuses. Such frivolity and calmness irritate the killer, so he decides to take everything himself. But as everyone has already understood, Lin is not so simple and easily avoids a sharp sword without much difficulty. Zhao sees that all the blows have gone through and it's time to stop, because the chaos will play into the hero's hands. He retreats to a safe distance and tries to figure out how to proceed. The swordsman understands what caused such a change in tactics, and with a contemptuous exhale, launches a counterattack. He manages to seize the moment and take 90 points in just one shot. The system highlights the deterioration in Zhou Hao's general condition and makes all information about the criminal public. Now it is clear that the drunkard cannot win due to the much smaller total number of characteristics. Laziness knocks the opponent to the ground with one blow and orders him to give up the secret technique of the sword sect. Zhao, trembling like a puppy, admits defeat and swears that he will fulfill any conditions to stay alive. Behind Zikin, he feels a strong flow of energy and is surprised by the unexpected ambush in the wilderness. A chasm forms between the rivals after the shockwave, and the men fly in different directions. Zhou Hao, seeing his older brother, kneels down and begs his relative for help, lying on the ground, humiliated and powerless. The killer confidently says that the hero is lucky, because now he will pay back for all the swings of his sword at the criminal. Zichen, after assessing the newcomer, notices that Zhou Shen is much stronger than he thought before their first meeting. The elder scolds the younger because he disobeyed him and could have died because of it, and the frightened Zhou Hao swears that he will not repeat the mistake. The master of the foundation tells the swordsman to give up his spiritual shield, as otherwise the man will make him suffer. The wounded man, pouring out the pills, asks his brother to wait for his recovery, because then their strength will be more convincing. However, unexpectedly, Zhou Hao's vital signs drop to almost zero from a severe blow to the collarbone and neck. It turns out that Lin did not want to wait for the end of the heartfelt conversation between the relatives and finished off his opponent under the surprised gaze of his brother. In his last breaths, the criminal writhes in agony from pain and calls for his loved one, who can no longer do anything about it. Zhao Shen glares at the warrior, who reminds him that those who talk a lot are the first to die, and his goal is to get the biggest reward possible. Therefore, pointing a weapon at the main character, Zeiken advises him to defend himself, because it is Shen's turn to join his brother. However, the opponent is not so simple because, using all his strength, he attacks the opponent first. The hero, having lost 220 health points, realizes that he cannot deal with this guy as quickly as he did with Zhou Hao. Shen impresses the character effortlessly as he possesses strong equipment and hidden combat techniques. With the help of a special skill, Zhou manages to get close to the hero from behind as he intends to destroy the enemy with one blow. However, Lin, albeit with difficulty, manages to evade the attack, defending himself with a battle sword that barely holds up. The boy is even thrown back a few steps by an invisible wave from the strong clash of weapons. Of course, Zhou Shen is faster, but Zichen has more experience and has to think things through in advance, because the situation is becoming dangerous. The attacker himself is at the stage of building the foundations, and simply has no right to lose to a kid with an initial level of Qi purification. The swordsman continues to attack, and the player simply dreams of a spiritual shield, but it still takes a full 15 minutes for it to renew. It's good that the Shadow's step is restored in just 10 seconds, and Lin decides to rely on it for now, because there is no other way. Having understood the opponent's tactics, Shen uses the talent of bifurcation, calling the hero too distant and naive. The guy has dealt with this cloning technique in the past, and at first glance, all the figures do indeed appear to be completely identical. But in reality they are different. If you look closely, you can determine which of the fakes is the real opponent. For example, only Zhou has the center of the eye very brightly lit, while in others, it is dimmer than the original. Using a little intelligence, Zichen finds an easy way to win and pierces Shen's armor for 5 seconds. Damage to armor effectively reduces defense by half, and the guy wants to use this chance in reality, pointing his sword at the warrior. Surprisingly, the swordsman easily obeys the technique, and it takes away as much as 110 health points, which annoys the man. He, exploding with anger, sweeps everything around him with pure energy, and specifically knocks out Zichen with a wave. Zhou, rushing forward with fierce enthusiasm, says that a tiger will always be a cat until it shows its true strength. The speed of his punches is too high, so even if Lin had an average level of Qi cultivation, he would not be able to resist. After getting one supply, the hero thinks that he cannot die because he will lose 10% of his characteristics. The player didn't want to use the pill from the craftswoman like that, but there was no other choice, and it was a matter of life and death. At first, Zhou Shen is unaware of what he will face and simply watches as the opponent in front of him changes. Thanks to the medicine, Zichen realizes that he feels much stronger and can continue the duel calmly. Seeing the expression on his opponent's face, Shen wants to see if he will laugh the same way before entering hell. Lin's health increases by 3,000 points, and the hero repels the enemy's impenetrable attack, which greatly surprises him. Zhou says the drug has helped tremendously, but the pills won't help forever because they have a limited shelf life. Having hit the enemy, the hero confirms this and says that the medicines are indeed eternal and have some defects in use. Therefore, he will destroy the founder while they are still active, and no one in the world can help or advise him. Zhou Shen still doesn't realize how the boy managed to become so powerful in such a short period of time. He needs to defend himself and withstand the power of the drug, because losing to a beginner on the most difficult task is simply embarrassing. Lin feels like he is gradually exploring the essence of sword wielding, as the blade itself has become 5 points sharper. Zichen's improved attacks even knock out most of the enemy's strength. Although he is a master of the basic ones, he is inferior to the player. Shen sees his opponent's achievements and thinks that the warrior is an important person in the sword sect, so he cannot be let go so easily. Zhou dares to pull himself together and use his last remaining trump card, gathering all his luck in one fatal blow. The brother of the deceased Hao sends a void step at Lin, and the swordsman lightly dodges, jumping up. During this battle, Shen is shocked to see how his attacks are not yielding any results. However, this time he missed one important move of Lin's, not having time to set up a defense, so the hero had the advantage. The swordsman attacks the master of the foundation in the very heart, which becomes a fatal blow and causes Zhou to fall like a stone to the ground. With relief, Lin completes the mission on a difficult level, and the system asks him to return to the sect to receive his reward. Looking at the fruits of his labor, Zichen knows in advance that the task will make him wealthy and wants to get rich quickly. However, the boy abruptly remembers that he has to do something else before he can return to the sword sect. The warrior has completed the sect's mission for the first time and must give the master a gift, so he goes to the square of the city of Fenshu. In this world, respect from the student to the teacher is mandatory and, moreover, increases commitment to the program. Since, in Lin's opinion, no woman can resist jewelry, he comes to the jade shop to buy something interesting. Later, the player returns to the task manager, and the girl admires her brother's coolness and speed. All the newcomers present stare with open mouths at the scroll that the hero hands to the beauty and wonder where he gets such skills from. Intellect declares that the student is worthy of being in the inner courtyard, for a great future awaits him, and wishes him good luck and enlightenment. As a reward, he will also receive 100 low-quality spirit stones, which should be saved for later. Sloth proudly takes away his privileges, and the crowd roars because for such rewards, you need to complete 10 regular missions with their level. People decide not to miss their opportunities, actively ask Zyken about his sect, and invite him to various guilds or partnerships. It gets to the point where the guy is simply running away from a huge group of lazy beginners who are looking for profit for themselves. It's good that he is helped by special guards who stand guard at the entrance to the courtyard and forbid anyone from touching this talented student. The student status of this part shocks the participants of the booth even more, because not everyone gets such a rare opportunity to test themselves. Bowing, the hero greets the master, and she says that she has already heard about his successful completion of the mission recently. However, Lin Feiyan is outraged by the novice's amateurism, as he could not cope and die, leaving the sect without a genius. The swordsman quickly says that he realizes his mistake, and the woman doesn't want to listen to excuses, so he continues to question. She asks condescendingly what level the opponent was at, and Lin admits that he initially thought the opponent's ki purification level was maximum. However, then their brother Zhou Shen joined their fight, and this man was already on par with the realm of foundation building. The master asks if the student achieved victory on his own, and he admits that without the magic pill, he definitely wouldn't have been able to do it. As the most talented player, Lin Feiyan gives Zichen a talisman that can only be used once, on the verge of death. From this moment on, the guy understands that with the support of the master, he is capable of anything, so the relationship cannot be ruined. Also, as promised, the woman gives a pill to gather ki, and hopes that with its help, the warrior will successfully make a breakthrough. The mentor notes that the hero lacks sword skills, so he can practice in the pavilion. Taking the jewelry out of his pocket, the guy asks the craftsman to wait, because he wanted to give a small gift. Lin was supposed to buy a spiritual hairpin, but his modest funds were only enough for a simple one, and he didn't know if Lin Feiyan would like it. The sect leader doesn't respond to this, and ordering them to train productively and not to overexert themselves, disappears from the gym. Zyken is disappointed because the woman looked aloof again, but the system reports that the affection has increased. The hero is happy about the beginning of a new friendship and hopes that another step towards conquering the cold beauty has been taken. After leaving the room, Lin turns sharply at the sound of the explosion that destroyed half of the sect and tries to see what is happening. Most of the participants have already run to the scene, and coughing they examine what is hidden behind the smoke. It turns out that the sword sect elder failed to improve the refinement pill again, and he can't believe it. So it's time for a hellish task from a scientist, in which you need to get one ingredient for a medicine. Lin Zyken steps forward and announces that he is ready to help with the preparation and complete the task. The elder, opening his eyes, sees that this is the same boy whom Lin Feiyan had recently taken as her student. The hero knows that this old man is the most powerful alchemist of the sect, and if he can establish good relations with such a respected member, there will never be any problems. The player is transported to the Valley of the Peregrine Falcon at night and sets out in search of the strongest boss. From previous experience, he can tell that bosses like this usually appear in clearings, so he should be somewhere here. Suddenly the swordsman hears some commotion from the side and turns at the sounds, seeing a battle before him. He managed to find the right beast, but someone managed to get to it first, which complicates the situation. It seems that all these women are from the same guild, which also came to complete the task and gain combat experience. More than a dozen newbies can't catch a single falcon, and looking at them, Lin can tell that the boss will destroy them all. So it's time to come out of your ambush and save the poor beginners by taking the fight upon yourself. One of the opponents notices a handsome man approaching them and tells Sister Wanlin that this is the same master. The guy says that he urgently needs this beast and wonders if they could give him a chance. He thinks everything will be easy since he has already managed to win the attention of the main character, but another person approaches Wanlin. The beauty explains to her partner that this is the same man who saved them from the boar and independently rose in the ranking of the strongest. She also acquired information about the mission from the blacksmith in Jichen. Hearing this, the chief assumes that the hero needs a sutra. However, this boss is no less important to the Moonshadow Guild, and even if he is a friend of women, he cannot simply take the beast away. Wanlin says she's very sorry, but the falcon is needed for the mission, so the swordsman should wait until tomorrow's update. Lin had thought that the boss wouldn't be given away just like that. However, looking at their situation, he wouldn't have to wait long. This boss is not that simple, as he has hidden skills and talents that not all players can master. The falcon uses special vapors that make the warriors dizzy, and they lose consciousness. Meanwhile, he actively attacks and destroys almost half of the group that was originally on the mission. Zyken explains that the boss will soon release tranquilizing dust, which will reduce physical energy and increase recovery time. This only scares Wanlin, and the head decides not to waste effort on chatter and focus on the beast. The woman uses her main skill called Immortal Earth Binding Hands, which is supposed to hold the falcon. And then he adds additional prairie fires to it to set the bird on fire and reduce its combat activity. And for a moment, she even manages to significantly weaken the boss, but most of the people are badly hurt and cannot help. According to the hero, this only angered the falcon, and as soon as its anger level increases, the attack speed and force of the blow will increase. And this is true, because the bird tries to grab the attacker, and Van Lin does not have time to protect or warn her friend. Therefore, the woman receives injuries that are almost incompatible with life, and fights back with her last strength, using a rock fall. Watching the leader, Lin shouts that she is completely stupid if she still hasn't figured out how to fight the falcon. He can show how to act, but in return, he will be given the herb of continuous yin, to which the guild quickly agrees. The player continues that the boss is now in agony, and the women only continue to annoy him with their lights. If you look at the head's health scale, it becomes clear that this beast can destroy such a fragile girl with one claw. Standing behind the attacker, Zyken orders the use of a lateral force that will limit the falcon's movements and render it helpless. The leader immediately does everything that is required, although she is a little embarrassed by the proximity of a player she does not know. Laziness praises her abilities and watches as the other half of the group, who have already managed to regain their points, becomes more active. Now that the girl controls the boss from a distance, only with the help of a spell, the companions can deal more damage. The guild leader herself is surprised by such an easy solution and sincerely thanks their savior for his help. However, not everything is that simple, as the Bloody Inhumans Guild appears, wanting to clear out this place and take possession of the falcon. The men order them to stop and go away, otherwise they definitely won't be so kind, and everything will be resolved immediately. Wanglin reminds us that this group is very strong and not easy to defeat, but they have retreated and surrendered many times. The chairman says that even if they lose, they need to show their spirit, because from a dynamic point of view, the Moonshadow Guild is much stronger. They could finish off the falcon if they got closer, but now they'll be fighting the bloody outlaws, and they'll lose the boss. Zitkin remarks that he can help, but as a reward, in addition to the yin herb, he wants another item from the beast's equipment. The women are surprised by such generosity, and Wanglin promises to leave some fighters behind to help, because he can't handle it alone. Having already taken up the sword, the sloth remarks that there is no need for this, and that they need to direct all their strength to fighting the guild. The ladies admire the bravery of their new acquaintance, but the leader of the bloody outlaws only laughs at their efforts. The man does not believe that he can handle such a powerful falcon on his own, and calls it just a pipe dream. He orders the brothers to move forward and teach this little girl a lesson, so that she will never think of calling them a bad word again. Wanlin is not going to give up and orders her comrades to stop the attack and protect their mission. The warriors say that not everyone can fight in this valley, so the kids definitely didn't come up to their level. After a while, a small group of women find themselves surrounded by enemies in the middle of a field and unable to do anything. The Bloody Inhumans members admit that they will play with the beauties after the match is over. It would be better if they stayed in their valley for beginners, but soon they will be sent there even without tickets and with an escort. The head of the guild says that by speaking out against them, the women tested their fate, and this will be a small lesson for everyone. Just a few days after the game launches, he will destroy another guild and take down the boss, which will make him famous throughout the world. Suddenly the man is informed that the system is giving an alert about someone's destruction, and this makes the speaker nervous. He is shocked to see that Lin Ziken has taken revenge on the boss of the Chi Purification realm and received a good reward. Standing near the remains of the falcon, the hero informs the surprised Wanlin of the victory and invites her to share the gifts among themselves. The head of the Bloody Bastards Guild shouts at the hero for daring to kidnap his boss and suggests that he is tired of living. This beginner was able to kill a strong boss on his own, which could become a big problem in the future, so he needs to be removed. The man promises a generous reward for killing the swordsman, and one of the participants in the battle decides to try his hand. It turns out that he is a boxing athlete with 20 years of experience, Feng Shan, who is in the early stages of chi purification. The attacker is so confident in his skills that he hasn't even thought of a tactic, which makes it easy for Zeiken to dodge. However, the warrior has practiced for almost 9 years in the past, so he won't be taken so easily with cheap tricks and intimidation. For such a skilled opponent, dealing with verbal skills is not a problem at all and will not take much time. Feng Shan doesn't believe in such a quick reaction and doesn't even have time to blink when Lin delivers the decisive blow. Other players consider such powers to be a common software glitch, as the guy wasn't even using his talents. The fact that the hero does not create problems does not mean that he is afraid of them, since disputes between guilds do not concern him. However, if they hurt Zeiken, they will greatly regret it and will be forced to pay for their mistakes with their lives. 4 of the guild members decide that there is nothing to fear from a haughty kid with an intermediate stage of chi purification and attack. It is not surprising that for the swordsman, these worthless creatures pose absolutely no threat, and he deals with them with one blow of his sword. Laziness is not tired yet, and invites the next willing members of the guild to oppose him, if there really are any. The leader orders the brothers to retreat, but sooner or later they will return and will surely take back everything that is rightfully theirs. The women thank the master for his help, and he replies that it's not worth it, because it's a normal thing for him. He dealt with the falcon, so now all the equipment belongs to the Moonshadow Guild, and that's no small amount of stuff. As agreed, the hero takes the herb of continuous yin and any other item of his choice. Wanlin notes that there were as many as 6 awards, and she has never seen a monster give so many gifts. The leader says that the savior can take them all, but Lin refuses because most of the women were done before he appeared, and that would be unfair. Hearing this, the girl calls her assistant and quietly whispers something in her ear while the warrior examines everything. Wanglin carries out some machinations, and Zeiken sees 5 million transferred to his account without even batting an eye. The leader, extending her hand, modestly asks the man to wait and introduces herself as Zhang Luoyu. This name seems familiar to the hero, and he happily accepts friendship with the head of the Moonshadow Guild. Lin suddenly remembers that he saw this woman in the past life ranking, and now she is second after him. In real life, more importantly, this player is the daughter of the richest man in the famous city of Chunhai. He decides to act and enjoy this aura of wealth for a while, which greatly embarrasses his interlocutor, who is still standing nearby. Wang Lin sees the state of his head and orders Master Lin to stop, and he pretends to think a little. The beauty can't believe that the savior just ignored her, but it turns out that he just didn't like her as a partner. Since everything is in order here, the character decides to leave, but offers to meet up as soon as the opportunity arises. Luo Yi notes that the assistant's acquaintance is quite nice, although Wanlin is convinced that her friend is simply being used. The girl thinks something is wrong here because Zhang is too embarrassed and maybe Lin is interested in her. While the leader decides to give each guild player 50,000 yuan, someone is watching them from behind a tree. This turns out to be Liu Xiaji, who is the most popular streamer on the server and has been in the game for a long time. The beauty says that Master Lin defeated the monster at the late stage of chi purification, and such strength is worthy of admiration. Liu Xiaji publicly admits that Jichen is the highest technician, and from that moment on, her only idol and god. Meanwhile, the angry head of the Bloody Inhumans Guild watches the stream and is angry that this braggadocio destroyed his people. And now the scoundrel becomes a local celebrity and even brings the poor man, who lost a lot of money gambling, to tears. Smashing everything around, the madman shouts that next time he will definitely destroy the enemy, regardless of the difficulty. Holding the grass of endless yin in his hands, the warrior solemnly informs the elder that he has completed the mission. The satisfied master, who is in the process of brewing medicines, orders the medicines to be placed on the table at the entrance. The alchemist cannot let the swordsman's efforts go to waste, so he throws him a small box as a reward. A surprised Lin sincerely thanks him, as inside is a pill that will improve combat performance and a bracelet for protection. Zikin wonders if the elder has made an allure pill before, because he remembers that he tried 99 times. The man confirms that all attempts are futile, and the boy thinks that if he tells the recipe, he will increase the master's favor. The alchemist seemed to know what to ask for the formula, and Lin pointedly recalls reading about it in an ancient book. The hero lists the necessary ingredients, such as 3 grams of stone powder, 2 wild phoenix wings, and 6 peony pistols. The scientist is simply shocked and anxiously interrupts Zeiken, begging him to wait, because otherwise he won't have time to write anything down. Having kindled the flame, Lin says that he will watch from the sidelines if the old man makes a mistake in the proportions. The potters were actively stirring something near the cauldron when suddenly the mixture unexpectedly exploded from the heat and tore off the lid of the cauldron. The alchemist even laughs hysterically with joy because for the first time in dozens of attempts, everything finally worked out. Saying that the player has helped him a lot, the elder gives him a small gift and his favor increases to 20 points. Tianjin is extremely generous because the attractiveness pill is rare and with a prescription, it is not easy to obtain it on your own. The warrior wants to return soon and use her on Len Feiyan because the higher her love, the more advantages in missions. However, the scientist has other plans, so he orders the swordsman to wait, which makes the boy a little surprised and curious about what happened. The elder asks if the hero likes alchemy, as he would like to take Lin as his apprentice and teach him the art, but the player doesn't know how to proceed. A craftswoman comes to the rescue, seeing that Grandpa Tianqing wants to take her only ward away from under his nose. Zeiken is nervous because he wanted to refuse anyway, but the mentor came at a spicy moment and might misunderstand everything. The elder excuses himself by saying that the warrior is simply very talented, and not teaching him alchemy would be a big mistake. Lin is relieved to see that the woman is not angry, but remains the same cold fairy without a hint of a change in mood. Len Feiyan convinces that her disciple is much stronger in cultivation, and their sect lacks immortals the most. With a strange look, the head asks not to be disappointed ahead of time. If the newcomer's condition improves, she will give way to Tianjing. A chill runs down the hero's spine from his mentor's behavior, and he tries to understand what she is thinking. The elder is quite happy with this deal, so Grandpa happily says that it's a different matter, and he agrees to wait a while. Having sorted everything out, the scientist turns around and announces that he is returning to alchemy, and those present can go about their business. Len Feiyan turns away from Jichen and tells her to follow her to the sword sect for an important one-on-one conversation. Lin's nervous system is already on edge, and the swordsman thinks the master's tone is unkind, so she wants to settle the final score. The woman thinks that the swordsman is not very happy with her training and suggests breaking the deal so that he can find someone better. In his head, the hero screams that the craftswoman really doesn't understand everything and is trying to somehow fix the situation. The guy bows and swears that he's not going anywhere and that he's made a big mistake, but the woman doesn't understand what was wrong with her words. The warrior explains that he did not listen to Len Feiyan and did not focus on cultivation, but went to the elder. Thus, the man wasted time and did not meet the expectations of such a respected and revered head of the sword sect. After this, the girl's expression became much softer, and it seemed that half of the insults had disappeared and Lin was on the right track. Zichen shouts that the cultivator is the best master in the whole world and generally looks like an invincible angel descended from heaven. With such characteristics and assets, it makes no sense for a player to look for another master for future advancement. Although Len Feiyan is deliberately silent, the system notifies her that her favorability has increased to 15 points. Deep down, the hero is happy about such a rapid change and realizes that now he can stop worrying about being thrown out like a puppy. Since the student admits his mistakes, the sect leader decides not to scold him harshly, to which the boy swears not to repeat his mistakes. To further curry favor with the woman, the warrior takes out a box containing a shining gift as an apology for the incident. Len Feiyan is amazed by the beauty pill and wonders where Lin was able to get such a rare and beautiful thing. Zichen tells Tianqing about the recipe and help, so the cultivator believes there is no need to give away something so valuable to her. The hero is angry that the girl is so arrogant, but she has to take the pill whether she wants to or not. Sharply grabbing the craftswoman by the hand, the handsome man pushes the box in and actively tells her that the elder made the medicine exclusively for her. Lin is confident that he will be able to learn alchemy and make not only such medicines, but also much more complex and newer ones. From that moment on, the player begins to train hard every day, so Len Feiyan must accept this humble gift. The woman, a little moved and embarrassed by such pressure, smiles easily and becomes even more beautiful in the hero's eyes. He adds, embarrassed, that the manager's fabulous appearance doesn't require any extra effort, but a gift might be in order. In this case, the cultivator takes the pill and their interaction grows into spending time together. The mentor wants to give something in return and mentions that she has several secret fighting techniques, so the woman will bring them a little later. The student has already forgotten that the benefit depends on the level of interaction, and when a woman orders him to follow her, he instantly obeys and notices one detail. The master put on the hairpin that the student had given her, and this little thing became so pleasant that it was able to move Zikin, who was not expecting it. After the conversation, the hero returns to the meditation hall and begins active research into special sword techniques. All this time, the panel highlights the character's improved characteristics, but after a minute the guy grabs a weapon. The warrior managed to master the extremely powerful Phoenix Feather skill, which is twice as advanced as Ice Moon Strike. Suddenly, girl screams are heard from behind the door, and when Lin opens it, he sees his little sister Gunyu and wonders what happened. The embarrassed assistant admits that she has a personal request, as she must complete at least 3 tasks as a disciple of the Sword Sect. Since the completion of cultivation, the beauty has done nothing and may receive punishment, although she experiences a rapid rise in realm. The reason remains the same as when they first met, and this is an interesting romance that Gunyu will never let go of. Grabbing her brother by the hand, the girl announces that she has another task to destroy the demon and asks the hero to help. Because his sister has always been kind to him and even gave him a jade pendant, the swordsman lightly agrees. The student glows with happiness and swears that she will cover her friend's back during a mission in a serene village on the outskirts of the game. The acquaintances quickly arrive at the right place, and the beauty tells them that evil spirits have recently consumed most of the members of the settlement. They stop in front of the gate, and Gunyue assumes that only the heretic monk is left here, so they need to hurry and tell the elders. In fact, Lin has already heard of this place before, and knows that after victory, he will gain entrance to the secret dungeon of the Crystal Kingdom of the Bloody Dead. The couple confidently enters and finds themselves in a wide courtyard with a stone well and no signs of life. However, they can't stand idle for long, because the pit begins to glow with a scary green light, and everything around them moves at a snail's pace. The shocked players see an evil spirit emerge from the well with screams and threats and try to attack them from all sides. The brave Gunyu, standing in front of her brother, blocks his way and taking out her sword, shouts to Lin, who has not yet managed to do anything, to be careful. She asks her brother to stay put and not be afraid, because the girl will be able to protect him without much effort. However, not everything is so simple, as the hero notices that there are too many spirits in the well now, and if there are about 100 of them, then you can even die. Gunyue suggests that this entire settlement has turned into spirits, so it is impossible to count exactly how many opponents there are. Rushing into battle, the beauty assures that today she will fix everything and destroy the demons, and the swordsman will gladly help her with this. It turns out that the cultivator is quite skilled with weapons and has several useful talents, such as decapitation light. Lin also managed to improve his own technique and combine his skills with his girlfriend for better effect. Gunyue is annoyed that the demon has destroyed the lives of so many innocent people, so she decides to do the same to him. The time has come to punish evil and avenge all the residents who tragically died in this peaceful and picturesque town. Zeiken is even a little surprised because on the outside her friend looks weak, but in reality, her attacks turn out to be incredibly strong. Suddenly, a green hand appears from behind the door into the temple, and the boy warns his sister. Although she manages to turn away from the attack without help and cut the demonic monster in half, saving her life. The player asks if everything is okay, and the beauty, looking at her blackened sword, confirms that she is not injured. Loud and angry laughter is heard all around, and the ground near the rescuers instantly begins to spark and explode. A demon appears before a pair of cultivators, assuring them that they will regret coming today and end up in hell. Lin is shocked that the enemy has the early stage of the golden elixir, and Gunyu doesn't understand why the sect's information is false. The warrior explains that judging by the thief's aura, he just broke through and the invader notes the boy's good intelligence. Pointing his staff at the characters, the demon says that if he completes the coup, neither of them will stand a chance with such power. The beauty orders her brother to stand back so he doesn't get hurt, and she takes out her weapon and wants to cut the evil spirit's head off. He angrily shouts that people should not touch his puppets, otherwise the criminal will replace them with newly arrived cultivators. Gunyu takes some strength from his partner and activates his main talent to accurately defeat the opponent and protect Lin. The girl instantly attacks the evil spirit, while the hero, observing the confrontation, decides to stay away. When masters of this level fight, you have to be careful not to have to return to the novice settlement again. The beauty is doing quite well on her own, so he can't help in any way, except to serve as a distraction. The demon, in the midst of the battle, throws some strange object in the form of a vessel to the ground, but Gunyu does not understand what it is. Only Zeiken is surprised to think that the thief is going to summon his demonic puppet to make the job easier. A minute later, An evil spirit emerges from the vessel in the form of a bloody newborn baby of elite origin, trying to grab the girl by the leg with its tongue and pull it into its mouth. However, Lin notices his intentions and quickly cuts the organ with his sword, knocking down the spirit's health by almost half of its stats. The warrior asks his sister to focus on the demon so as not to get hurt, and he will deal with all the secondary opponents on his own. The bloody baby, moaning terribly, exclaims that it will first eat only the heart itself, and then the entire player, to the last drop. It's not too difficult for Zyken to deal with such an opponent, so he quickly gives up, but it's not the end. After all, the second phase begins, called Bloody Bat, whose scream changes the mind and reduces the effect of skills by 30%. The warrior knows that in such cases, it is necessary to remain calm and not pay attention to the noise, so he gathers all his strength into his sword. After a while, he senses a newly acquired technique called Phoenix Feather and breaks through a swarm of animals. This tactic allows him to activate the damage effect and ignore armor for 15 seconds, causing the mice to explode. Using the skill in action, Lin finds that it surpasses Ice Moon's strike by more than one level. Meanwhile, Gunyu manages to overthrow the demon, who still refuses to give up and tries to continue the attack. The swordsman thinks that the first impression was wrong and that one should not underestimate such a weak and always sweet sister. The evil spirit, almost unable to move, screams that even on the verge of death, it will be able to take its enemy with it. While cutting the log that the attacker threw, the beauty doesn't even suspect that a strange substance might be spilling on her. The warrior, rushing forward, orders his sister to quickly cover her mouth and nose, as the enchantment dust has been used against her. However, unfortunately, Gunyue does not have time to do this, and the cultivator is instantly transformed. The beauty loses her strength, and the frightened Zyken quickly runs to save her. Picking up his companion, the hero asks worriedly if everything is okay, but the swordsman, breathing heavily, asks him to turn away. Exhaling heavily, the man turns away and assumes that this is his sister's first encounter with such dust, because she doesn't know how to behave. Suddenly, Gunyu's level of affection begins to increase, and the warrior regrets that it is solely due to the demon's attack. The beauty is very uncomfortable, but she apologizes for not being able to control herself and reaches out to the embarrassed Lin for a kiss. Meanwhile, the warrior is already starting to actively fantasize about spending the night with the cultivator, if only he could. However, the fact that the beauty will not remember anything after waking up and will be angry with her brother forces the player to strongly push her away. The hero has started too well, so you can't bury your own reputation for the sake of a simple, involuntary desire. After looking around, Zyken remembers that some special healing elixirs were extracted from this ancient well even before the destruction of the village. There is important information at the bottom. Although it will be difficult for Lin to survive in the realm of chi purification, he can't wait any longer. Vowing to find an antidote, the warrior moves inside, where streams of powerful energy rage. It seems that these bones are the remains of the inhabitants of the settlement, and their terrible appearance makes the master feel sick. Suddenly, the boy begins to feel the effects of the well's effects, as his health scale gradually decreases. He understands that he must find the elixir as soon as possible, otherwise he may die here and his girlfriend outside. Something glitters next to the mountain of remains, and the warrior realizes that this is exactly what is needed. He probably finds the elixir in a beautiful bottle held by one of the skeletons. Lin heads there to pick up the medicine when purple lightning flashes overhead. Zyken decides to use his only defense, namely the spirit shield, but even he can barely hold out. The dark force is growing stronger, and the swordsman can no longer stay here. Preparing to jump, the swordsman tries to get out using the walls. However, the energy doesn't let go and manages to hit Jichin, taking away almost all of his vitality. The hero falls out of the well and provocatively falls directly onto Gunyuye, who is still unconscious. Yin energy penetrates the body, and a critical amount of health causes loss of consciousness, so the rescuer quickly injects the antidote into the companion. These efforts do not help the boy at all, as he is actively coughing up blood while the system says that Lin is on the verge of death. After some time, a tired Gunyu wakes up, not yet realizing what happened and regaining consciousness. Suddenly she feels some heaviness on her, and looking down, sees Zyken lying provocatively on top of her. All sorts of obscene assumptions about how her brother managed to come to her aid burst into the beauty's head. The nervous girl knocks her body off her feet with a blow, leaving the cultivator with no hope of salvation or improvement. Lying on the ground, the player listens to Nien crying and calling him a pervert, while their interaction drops to 0. After looking around with a calm head, Gunyu notices a bottle with a rare elixir of recovery at his feet. Memories of how the warrior abruptly pushed her away and went in search of medicine appear on the edge of consciousness. The beauty awkwardly comes to the conclusion that she misunderstood the player and made an unnecessary fuss. She is even a little surprised that her brother climbed into a terrible, cursed well to save himself, even though he could have died. Crawling closer to his fellow cultivator with tears in his eyes, he notices that he has been terribly wounded. Pulling herself together, the girl picks up Lin's almost lifeless body and heads to the sect where their grandfather will help them. Near the palace, the newcomers notice that it is the same famous character, but now for some reason she is carrying a swordsman. The tired Nyan tells her brother that they are almost there, but instead of helping, the participants want to attract the beauty's attention. The crowd discusses the legendary player, who is now, for unknown reasons, hanging on a woman's shoulders. After the words that the sister cares so much about Lin and it's not fair, one of those present clenches his fists in anger. This angry passerby turns out to be senior disciple Chu Tianhang, who has his own views on Jichen. A little later, the hero barely opens his eyes and tries to understand where he is now and why he is still in the game. While the warrior turns his head and counts how many people have been here, a mysterious silhouette appears in the doorway. It turns out that this is the Elder of Heaven, who has an incredibly strong aura. Perhaps it was he who was able to save Lin. Standing up with difficulty, Zeiken introduces himself as a disciple of the Sword Sect, and admits that he did not realize the full greatness of the newcomer. However, for the elder, his officialdom means nothing, and the man confidently replies that it's nothing. With a murderous look, the savior explains that he is Nian Gunyu's grandfather, named Niangong Yuan. The cultivator is surprised by such an unexpected acquaintance, but in this world, it is worth keeping a closer eye on everyone with the title of Heavenly. It is for this reason that the boy falls to his knees and shouts that he is incredibly grateful and will forever remember the elder's kindness. As he passes by, the master remarks that he doesn't care about kindness, and the swordsman must remember only one thing. Lin should be kept away from Niangong Yuan's granddaughter, and if he decides to take advantage of the girl, he will regret it. Even if Zeiken is the best of all the students, such a small thing won't help him and Grandpa will take revenge. Suddenly, Gunyu appears at the door, shouting that the relative has broken his promise and has started molesting the guest. And before that, the elder tearfully swore that he would take care of the hero and not say any nonsense. The nervous master excuses himself that he was just joking, and the boy is a great young man because he saved his granddaughter. Sitting close to the player, the beauty sincerely asks how he is feeling. Lin thinks it's better to watch his tongue, because Yuan's look clearly means the man wants to destroy him. The hero assures him that everything is fine, and Gunyu says that if the yin energy had penetrated deeper, he would not have been saved. Blushing like a child, the player joyfully thanks his sister for her help and understanding. The beauty is also embarrassed and, looking away, explains that she simply couldn't walk past him. Niangong Yuan simply cannot stand there whispering and admiring, so he coughs loudly, attracting attention. The frightened swordsman nervously chases the girl away like a cat, and she doesn't understand what she did wrong. In fact, Gunyue wants to thank him, because if Lin hadn't jumped into the well to get the antidote, everything could have ended differently. Then she misunderstood everything, and therefore apologizes for her shameful behavior, because her brother is a true gentleman. Mentally, the hero begs the cultivator to shut up, because the angry elder will soon scold him. Zeiken also sees no reason for such a strange look from her sister. Her favorability is currently 32 points, which is quite a lot. The level suddenly doubles, forcing the player to imagine a whole new level of relationships with their girlfriend. Niangong Yuan coughs at the guest, and the player tells the beauty that her grandfather has a very bad cough and can look for medicine. Gunyue laughs and says not to worry, since the man is just old, he will clear his throat and everything will be fine. The elder abruptly opens the door and orders the patient to go hunting with him, if he has recovered. The elder leads the couple to his garden, where the warrior notices many new and interesting things among the wildlife. For example, strange monkeys are actively running through the trees, and Lin is enthusiastically choosing who he could take for himself. The master wonders if something is wrong, as this place is no worse than a sect garden, and the swordsman hastily replies that it's pretty good. The cultivator is outraged by the young man's words, and wonders if he has seen anything better in his life. Zeiken thinks that his new acquaintance is very proud, and it would be useful for him to please his grandfather and receive some kind of privilege for it. The hero says that he has heard of quite a large number of spirit beasts, and Niangong haughtily explains that he can boast about the quality of the zone. The swordsman apologizes and suggests that there are no spiritual beasts from the realm of mastery in this garden, which is quite shameful. The old man grabs him by the scruff of the neck and threatens the boy not to dare to draw hasty conclusions, because at the entrance there is only the realm of key purification, and beyond that there are higher levels. An offended Yuan drags his guest behind him and says he will give him a detailed tour, while Lin asks him to wait. Mentally, the player is happy that everything worked out, and now he can see the opponent's trump cards and then fight the strongest. Having brought the couple to all kinds of animals, the man tells them that he has everything, but they need to wisely assess their own strength. Any of these giants could destroy the guest, and Zeiken is no longer so sure about wondering if there are any individuals here who are not in the transformation stage. Gunyue explains that the strongest beast here is at the spiritual stage, and Grandpa is only bragging because he is afraid of the hero's ridicule. The elder hears everything perfectly, and even feels a little ashamed, so the master orders Lina to choose a beast and quickly fail. The beauty asks Grandpa not to be so stingy, because the savior must get the beast at least at the basic stage, but Nyangong is against it. Yuan calls the swordsman a stranger, but he does not consider his grandson that way, and grabbing his comrade by the hand, leads him on. In a past life, the guy didn't pay attention to the development of relationships, and didn't even suspect that there were so many advantages to it. Pointing to the curious wolf, the girl says that it is in the initial stage of development, and can be used as a means of transportation. And next to him is the moon monkey, which has extraordinary attack power and speed, and will be useful in all battles. However, unexpectedly, a small, furry creature rolls to the feet of the two warriors, and Zeiken quickly picks it up. It turns out that it is an iron eater, which was quite rare in ancient legends and possessed such power that it was simply invincible. Picking up the confused individual and shaking it in the air, the cultivator joyfully exclaims that he wants to take it for himself. However, the elder has other plans and snatches the iron eater right out of the guest's hands because he already has too few of these animals. And this is still a baby who has many years to grow and develop. For this reason, the man has no idea how he will give it into someone else's hands. Gunyuye is not going to give up and snatches the baby from his grandfather's hands, because this spiritual talisman is a perfect fit for his little brother. Under Nyangun's shocked gaze, the beauty thrusts the iron eater straight into the hero's hands and orders him to treat it with care. The grandfather cannot bear the loss of such a rare specimen and attacks the boy with terrifying screams. The woman stands up for her friend and reminds him that the elder has taught her kindness and generosity since childhood, and therefore he has no right to do so. The beauty asks to quickly tame the beast and tells her that she needs to put a finger with a drop of blood on the iron eater's forehead. The player quickly follows all instructions and tries to enter into spiritual contact with the owner of the foundation to get to know him. The girl happily says that there is no going back, but the grandfather is not at all happy that his granddaughter has taken on his stubborn character. Meanwhile, the warrior manages to exchange thoughts with the animal and move into its mental channels. However, the Iron Eater wants him to go away because he is not going to obey the boy with the realm of the initial level of chi purification. Laziness decides to use tricks and promises that he will take the animal everywhere with him and give it delicacies from different parts of the world. The swordsman has some ideas about spirit beasts from a past life, and they, by their nature, cannot resist delicious food. Zichen says that there is a secret kingdom in Masyangzhou with a bamboo forest that is very sweet, delicious, and inaccessible. And on some immortal islands a fabulous fruit grows, eating a piece of which can extend your life by 100 years. The player wants to continue, but the Iron Eater, quickly jumping up from his seat, orders to stop talking about food because he is very hungry. The animal suspiciously asks if it will be able to taste all of the above if it makes this weirdo its master. Laziness confirms and explains that he always keeps his word, so the characters make a deal by touching their fists. The system reports that everything went well, and the young animal calmly comes to in the arms of a happy Jichen. The young man asks the Iron Eater not to worry, and swears that he will take care of him, thinking about future prospects. In the background, an announcement is being made that the game's first major update will take place in 10 minutes, and all participants will be disconnected. This happened in a past life too, but this time the event was moved a month earlier, which made it even more interesting to wait. Lazy can't waste time, so he thanks his sister for today and explains that he has to get back to practice. These words make Gunyu even a little sad, but he understands that his comrade needs to rest more before missions. Already in the real world, a notification arrives on the hero's phone, and he quickly looks at it at the same moment. This is Sister Chushui, writing that her sister's birthday is in a few days, and she is inviting a friend to dinner. This girl is 3 years older than Ziken, but they are cousins only in appearance. When the cultivator was a child, the beauty often came to play, but she was constantly teased by other children because of her braces. Many boys on the playground could make faces and call their sister a monster with iron teeth, throwing themselves on the ground. The hero always came to the rescue and took revenge on the attackers, shouting that no one dared to insult Chu Shui as long as he was here. However, bravery did not prevent the character from being beaten, because the hooligans believed that he should not meddle in other people's affairs. Seeing her little brother suffering, the girl cried a lot and worried that the boy would remain unharmed. As a result, of course, Zhao Chen was not even recognizable. However, this only brought the children who grew up in difficult conditions closer together. Chu Shui had been attached to the player since childhood, and he liked it, but in her older years they moved to different cities. From time to time, the heroes would call each other, and after the death of Lin's parents, the beauty became the only ray of light in dark days. At first, the young man believed that his sister treated him only as a lesser friend, but then he read her diary and learned about her true feelings. In his past life, Zichen was in love with Guoji, and when he met Chu Shui many years later, she had already been married for a long time. Moreover, sometime after the beginning of family life, the girl left this world due to depression. Now that I think about it, the guy realizes that they distanced themselves from the invitation to this birthday party. The player comes to the hospital because he remembers that Chu Shui seems to have been working there as a gynecologist for quite some time. The night rushes by beside him, with doctors and a woman running alongside, calling for her father, who has lost consciousness. In fact, this is Yang Yizhu, the chairman of the board of directors of the shipping corporation, who has a loved one who is terribly ill. She shouts that Ding Jin must save her father while the boy watches all this. Finally, he has the opportunity to use his own knowledge of the game, and he strikes the right spot on the body. If the warrior had not done this, the old man would not have lasted much longer and would have died before the operation could begin. The girl doesn't pay attention to what just happened and is happy that her relative is conscious, while the doctors are shocked by what they saw. The chief orders the patient to be sent to the operating room as soon as possible, because as long as the man is conscious, they have a better chance of survival. Yang Yizhu attacks Lin, saying that she is ready to pay any price, but the boy knows that only the elixir from the game can cure this disease. He notes that he simply helped open the chakras, which slowed down the death, and now everything depends on the operation. Zaikin leaves the head of the council with hope with his words that the disease cannot be cured, and that life can be extended for a maximum of half a month. Standing before the savior and shedding a tear, the beauty asks permission to lean on the sect disciple's shoulder, and doesn't even wait for an answer. Her father was lucky to be born at a different time than Lin's parents. He would have done anything to save them, becoming the god of the game. Having let out all his emotions, Yang Yizhou apologizes, because of this, all the stranger's clothes got very wet. The guy assures that everything is fine and he needs to go, and also asks the council chairman to spend more time with his father so that it's not too late. The beauty asks to wait and hands over a card with some money on it and her business card, because if anything is needed, she will do it instantly. The sect disciple assures that he will definitely contact her if anything happens, and notes that the woman he is talking to is quite wealthy. As she leaves, the girl smiles a little and says with a strange look that she will see the little miracle doctor again. Taking a deep breath, Lin is indignant that he was called small, because he has long been an adult. Suddenly, a familiar figure appears from the side, and the hero immediately recognizes his relative and loudly calls out to her throughout the hospital. Chu Shui sees the familiar face and breaks into a smile, holding medical documents. After hugging the beauty tightly, the hero scatters the leaves and says that he misses her incredibly. The girl, hugging her brother in return, is surprised by such reactions, although a lot of time has passed since their last meeting. Relatives come to Chu Shuye's place of residence, and the sword sect disciple wonders why she lives here, since this place is about to be demolished soon. The woman feels a little ashamed of such apartments, although her sister explains this by saying that the apartment is cheap and not far from the hospital. After slamming the door, the beauty invites her in and advises Zhao Chen to take a shower while she prepares something delicious. The warrior recalls that in a past life, Chu Shuye would occasionally transfer money to him, and he didn't even know how poor his loved one was. Watching the girl handle the apron, the player believes that the doctor could get much more than she has. The girl doesn't understand why the guest has stopped and reminds him that a change of clothes, if needed, is in the closet. Lin remembered that he shouldn't get carried away by memories, and the witness says that everything is absolutely fine, although this doesn't reassure Chu Shui. Opening the makeshift wardrobe, the man is surprised to notice that new men's clothing has appeared there, which is quite unexpected. The landlady makes the excuse that she bought all this because she was bored and hoped to give it to her brother because it would suit him. The beauty asks to try it on, and Ziken is not reassured by the fact that the interlocutor is so sweet and kind. After getting out of the shower, the hero hastily dries his hair with a towel, covering his eyes from the long-awaited relief. Meanwhile, food has long appeared on the table, thanks to the efforts of the sister, who is constantly trying to please the guest. Taking the phone, Chu Shui remembers that her relative's education is very expensive, and she is about to receive her salary and transfer part of it to the student. Grabbing his sister by the hand, the brother says that he has enough, but the beauty thinks that he is fooling her, because where does the student get so much money? To confirm, Xiaochen transfers 1,000,000 yuan to the employee's account, which makes the employee think he is doing something illegal. Actively chewing, the swordsman says that he earned everything honestly in the same game about the 8 wastes, which is currently popular. Chu Shui says that she had heard about this way of working before, but she definitely didn't expect it to be true, and that her brother works hard. From now on, the sister might not be able to work, because Lin takes care of her, but the girl swears to give everything. Standing up from the table, Ziken asks, a little angrily, why his sister treats him like a stranger if they are such close friends. The beauty denies this because it's not true, and Xiaochen asks her to accept the money and not to think of anything else. In the evening, there is a problem with the sleeping place, so the little brother suggests sleeping together in the bed and thinks that he would never have said such a thing before. The little sister shyly adds that this is stupid and that the guy will take the bedroom while she sleeps on the couch in the living room that night. The man denies that it is wrong and wants to lie down in the large room by himself, but his relative pushes him to sleep. While they are arguing, it is getting dark outside the window, and a contented cat is already resting on the window. For some reason, Lin can't fall asleep in his new place, perhaps because the blanket and pillow smell like chushuye. He decides to go out to the hostess and say that he forgot to tell her something and would like to do it now. The girl quickly wakes up at his voice and worries about what happened and why Ziken is still awake. The hero abruptly sits down next to the beauty, listening to the gusts of wind outside the window, and wonders if his sister wants to quit her job. The doctor exclaims that this is unacceptable because she doesn't want to be on her brother's neck and will never agree to such stupidity in her life. The player explains that he suggested this because Chu Shui works far away in the capital, and he misses her terribly because he can't come quickly. The woman is embarrassed and wonders why her brother says such ambiguous things so suddenly and thoughtlessly. Placing his hand on the beauty's palm, Lin asks if her sister will join him in the 8 wastelands for joint cultivation. The very next day at work, Chu Shui wonders why Xiaochen wanted to fire her, because maybe it would have been the right decision. Confetti flies at the surprised employee at the door, and joyful colleagues wish their friend a happy birthday. In the middle of the crowd stands Chief Dr. Zhang with an incredible bouquet and says that he has booked a private room in a luxurious restaurant. The beauty awkwardly replies that it's not worth it. She can pay for everything herself, because this is her holiday. Coming closer, the man reminds her in a strange tone that the doctor knows about his feelings and that she shouldn't push them away so easily. In his head, Zhang knows that he will lure his colleagues to dinner for hundreds of dollars and then finally get close to Chu Shui and do whatever he wants. Suddenly, a familiar silhouette appears in the doorway, and he admires the way his beautiful little sister is greeted. Looking at the guy, the head doctor notices the Ferrari keys that the guest is twirling on his fingers and is very surprised. After all, before that he was told that brother Chu Shui was poor, and now he is bragging to everyone about owning a sports car. Lin approaches and extends his hand to a nervous Zhang, who is trying to figure out what to do next. After shaking the surgeon's hand, the player is going to see what dirty plan Zhang Guangwei has conceived. The crowd leaves the hospital building and notices the fancy car of their co-worker's younger brother. Someone even tries to touch it, but quickly stops, because if they mess it up, they will have to pay a huge fine. The boss is angry that the uninvited guest is bragging about his success, but this could mean that the poor guy actually stole the money for the car somewhere. He comes closer and says that Xiao Chen only has 2 seats, and there won't be enough room for everyone, so his sister should come with him. For everyone else, the man will happily pay for the taxi, and after these words most women admire Dr. Zhang's generosity. By tapping his finger on his finger, the hero pompously explains that there is no need to worry, because he has already taken care of everything. After noting that the transport is already here, several huge buses arrive and Ziken invites people to get on. Chushu asks if the guy really bought the Ferrari, and he confirms that it was just a small gift for her birthday. Sitting inside, the beauty worries about the price, because she knows that her relative earns a lot now, but she shouldn't spend so much. Hearing this, Lin advises his sister to quit her job as soon as possible so that he can leave the money in the safe hands of someone who will control it. Already in the restaurant, the player notices that Brother Zhang has gone crazy because he ordered the most luxurious room in the entire capital. Guangwei says he is ready to do anything for his colleague and watches with arrogance as this peasant looks around. Xiaochen remembers that the top floor offers a great view of most of the city and hopes they will sit there. Initially, the chief physician planned to sit on the second floor because the higher it is, the more expensive it is, but he cannot afford to be embarrassed. The man maliciously thinks that for the sake of his plan to obtain Chushuye, he is ready to sacrifice a significant part of the funds. Already sitting at the table, one of the guests is happy to be talking to her sister because everything is incredibly delicious. The culprit of the celebration herself can only think about how to compensate her friend for all the expenses in the future. Lin notices that her sister often talks about Dr. Zhang and how tolerant and fair he is towards others. In response, the interlocutor notes that he heard about the brother's poverty and asks him to tell why he bought such an expensive car. Ziken understands that his opponent wants to know more and cunningly explains that he wanted to express support for his relative through the gift. Now Guangwei understood that the young man simply wanted to impress and not fall face down in the dirt due to his poverty. To further humiliate the guest, the man calls the waitress over and asks her to bring him some more wine. A pretty woman immediately comes over and offers a few more glasses and a bottle of the exquisite drink. The employee says that this is a special type that is made only by their establishment, so everyone should try it. Zhang admits that he wasn't going to order a drink today, but it's still his beloved Chushui's birthday. Raising the glass to his face, Xiaochen recognizes the scent of the drug he used to hunt animals in the game. Having abruptly put down his drink, he remembers that he only rented a car until lunchtime and must return it immediately or he will receive a huge fine. The guy asks to follow his sister and bring her home, to which Guanwei swears to do everything listed. Lin sees that the fox has shown his tail, but decides to reveal everything later so that Zhang will definitely pay for what he has done. The girl notices her brother leaving the room, but does not follow him because of the doctor's call for another toast for today's birthday girl. Everyone present actively congratulates Chushui, which makes the girl, who has never received anything like this before, laugh happily. Later, the guests feel dizzy and begin to actively fall asleep, which is when the main culprit gets up from the table. Looking at his sleeping colleague, he says that he has been waiting for this fateful day for a very long time. Guanwei picks up the drunken beauty and carries her to the room, telling her how they will do something very interesting. Chushui screams and begs to let her go, but the doctor takes the phone and starts taking pictures of the beauty, calling it her pay for the evening. Zhao threatens to produce a huge amount of compromising material because such a shy and gentle girl would never go to the police. When the time comes, she must marry her colleague, and then the doctor will be forced to do whatever Guanwei tells her to do. The main character unexpectedly bursts into the room, knocking down the door, and orders his sister to be released. The frightened criminal does not understand why Ziken has returned and quickly turns around to defend himself. However, the villain doesn't have time to do anything, and after an incredibly strong blow, Linya screams in a voice that is not her own. There is a stampede and voices outside the door, trying to figure out what is happening and who broke into the hotel. It turns out that these are some of the employees who run into the room and wonder what happened to the gentleman who lives here. Those present see the hero taunting Jen and asking if he really enjoys mocking his sister like that. Well, if this is really the case, then Xiaochen will teach him a lesson for life and remove all the organs the doctor doesn't need. Pointing at the scoundrel, the boy explains that he suspects Guangwei of poisoning the wine and asks for help in sorting out this shameful situation. Such a statement sends shivers down the hotel manager's spine, and her assistants are actively discussing among themselves whether it's true. Ziken explains that he has direct evidence that his relative was illegally filmed and wonders if the doctor will confess on his own. Seeing the anger directed at him and suffering from injuries, the man falls to his knees and confirms. Chu Shuye lies motionless on the bed, upset and half-conscious, trying to cover herself and hide. The brother comes closer and takes his sister in his arms, which makes the beautiful girl hug him closer and thank him for saving her. The warrior replies that she has always taken care of him, so in adulthood it is his turn to repay her care. The next day, closing the door behind him, the young man finally returns home to his native apartment. The swordsman didn't even think that saying goodbye would be so difficult, because he begged his sister at the airport to take care of herself. The girl swore that as soon as she finished work, she would definitely come visit him for a few days. After dropping his backpack, the sect member notes that he didn't want to leave Chu Shuye, but the 8 Wastes update has long been completed. Sitting down at the game console, the hero decides that he needs to get back quickly so as not to let others outdo him. The login process begins, and the cultivator is transported to a new world where he immediately receives messages from the system. During this time, the game has really made more progress, as in the later stage of chi purification, all characteristics increase by 10 points. The hero, touching the ring, remembers that he never looked at all the things that fell out after taming the Iron Eater. The list includes items such as Cherry Tree Umbrella, Blood Mouse Squeak Spiritual Equipment, and Funeral Sand Bones. All that Xiaochen needs now is to improve his cultivation and choose to build a heavenly path. However, the conditions for this path are very difficult and require both materials and the 6 spiritual beads of the elements. Although the boy has not yet reached the stage of building the foundations, he needs to start collecting these necessary and rare resources now. On the way out, the warrior notices the tamed animal and, waking it up, orders it to get up, because work will not wait long. The Iron Eater reminds him that the owner made him a promise, but the warrior pretends not to remember anything like that. The ward angrily berates the cultivator, and his loyalty level drops by as much as 10 points. Zicken is frightened by this news because he completely forgot that animals have a loyalty scale that depends on the actions of their owner. If it falls below 70, the beast will not obey, and if it does not reach 50, it may even rebel. Immediately changing his tone, the player makes excuses that he was just joking and actually woke up the pet to feed it. The Iron Eater is not one to lie and coldly advises his master to hurry up with his promise. Descending the stairs, the student already knows that the most important update to the 8 Wastes this time will be the dungeons. However, only 3 are currently open: Nightmare for single player, Ghost Ridge Cave, and Valley of the Dead King for team play. These dungeons, similar to the sect missions, are divided into memory difficulty levels, such as easy, normal, hard, extremely hard, and hellish. First, you need to clear the Nightmare, because it contains the necessary materials to break into the realm of the Foundation. Wang Shunhuang, a disciple of the Inner Sword sect in the late stage of building the Foundation, unexpectedly appears on the boy's path. The man wonders where the young man is going, and the young man seriously asks if there are any problems down there that concern him. Taking out his sword, the warrior introduces himself and says that he wants to challenge the young cultivator. There is a rule in the sect that if the level of improvement of the one who challenged does not exceed the opponent by more than 1 level, then a fight is possible. Students may challenge each other to a duel unless they have a valid reason for refusing in the form of injury or expulsion. This stimulates continuous self-improvement and predicts that the sword sect will become the best in the Musean state. This is great, but Lin doesn't like to do something without benefit, so if he wins, he wants to receive a substantial reward. Wang Shunhuang suggests betting the number of points contributed to the sect, as this is common practice in duels. However, the hero has 0 points, so the attacker wonders if he can afford to be left with 0 points in case of a loss. In such a situation, sects can be excluded, and here Nayan comes to the rescue, asking her younger brother not to be afraid. She has over 60,000 power points, and that is more than enough to cover the cost of the battle. Laziness is once again convinced that living at the expense of others is the right way, and smiles sweetly at her friend. Van turns to his friends for help, and they gladly give away everything they have earned, because every person lives to preserve their dignity. In total, they manage to get 1,500 points, and the opponent swears that Zyken will give them all for his superiority. Meanwhile, on the dueling platform, outer sect disciple Chen Yuan wins. His opponent is lying on the floor and can't even get up to continue the attack. The crowd believes that the warrior is a real beast, as he was able to win as many as 8 times in a row and will soon be able to become the best swordsman. Despite his strength, the man remains remarkably calm and does not boast of so many advantages or skills. Niangong, the head of the branch, enters the arena and sees that the young man has incredible talent and skill with weapons. That is why the elder wants to take the warrior as his disciple and asks the surprised winner for his consent. Folding his hands in a traditional bow, Chen Yuan accepts the offer with great honor and respect. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted by a young girl who runs with all her might to her father, who is Niangong Wu. When the beauty runs past the warrior, smiling lightly at him, the young man almost faints from her charm. The father wonders why his daughter came here, and Nian says that she has to support her younger brother, who has been challenged. The elder asks how Gunyo knows that he has just taken Chen Yuan as a disciple and wants to officially introduce them to each other. The shy swordsman quickly realizes that he needs to congratulate his older sister. Nian explains that Dad misunderstood everything because she was only talking about her younger brother Lin. The guy who entered the ring at that moment is surprised by this look from the elder and remembers how he crossed his path. Niangong is sure that this opponent is using some tricks, and this is a good chance to bring him to justice with the help of Chen Yuan. The opponent knows a lot about Xiao Chen and would like to learn a few of his techniques today to improve his fighting skills. From a past life, the hero remembers that this guy was the best swordsman and declares that he is busy today. Pointing back, he explains that he has already accepted the challenge from Wan Shunhuang, but those present do not understand whether this is serious. After all, Wang is in the late stage of activation, and his level is much higher, so Lin can easily give up. Shunhuang tried to hide this fact because he didn't want Zichen to refuse, but now the fight might not happen. The player says that he is aware, but if the opponent really wants to give up his power points in the sect, he will gladly agree. The elder does not understand what his daughter could find in such a young, yet already self-confident loser. However, the girl herself radiates love and happily wishes her brother victory and good luck in the difficult battle. Activating the power, the swordsman asks Brother Van to start and even allows him to make the first honorable attack. The opponent is angered by such laconicism in the hero's words, so he swears that today he will test the skills of the sect disciple. The man taking out his sword swings it in all directions, but instead of Lin, he cuts a stone and doesn't see where his opponent has disappeared to. At this time, Zichen moves behind Shunhuan and praises his speed, but unfortunately, the warrior is one step ahead. At the beginning of the battle, the hero manages to knock out half of the base owner's strength with one blow from behind. The man quickly bounces back from further attacks and realizes that he was careless and uses combat techniques. The system displays Van's characteristics and it becomes obvious that he is difficult to resist without experience. The cultivator sends a relentless stream of power at Lin, which few have been able to withstand. The boy channels all his energy into his sword and clashes his weapon with Xuanhong, changing the course of events. The crowd watches in shock as Zichen knocks the last vital signs out of the main character without much effort. The man even falls out of the ring, and the judge loudly announces that this time the disciple of the sect leader has won. Nian runs up to her father and asks what he will say about her brother's victory, and the elder admits that the hero has exceeded his expectations. Disappointed that his daughter is so stupid and easily loses her mind to the superior Xiaochen, the man walks away. Streamer Xiaji appears in the middle of the crowd, shouting to everyone that she was right, and the player definitely wasn't cheating. There is an active discussion in the chat that with such movements and skill, Lin possesses true professionalism. The girl in love says that this warrior is the most beautiful deity in all the 8 wastelands, and she wouldn't trade him for anyone. Chen Yuan thinks he's afraid of Wang's attacks, but some rookie broke such an experienced player with one move. No one could have imagined this, but the man steps forward and calls out to an interested Lin, who is celebrating his victory. Chen admits that today he is not the same player, but assures that it will not be long before this changes. He swears that he will reach Zichen's level and even surpass him, he just needs to wait a little longer. The hero knows that Yuan is number 1 now, and his determination and pride speak for themselves, but now he will change everything and receive the title of the best. Gonyuye notes that the Barty has become much better, and the cunning Lin explains that he cannot always rely only on the shelter. Nayan frowns expressively at these words and asks if the guy really doesn't like the fact that she protects him and doesn't appreciate it. The player denies it and explains that one day he will protect his little sister from all winds and rains and will definitely boldly meet her grandfather and father. Hearing this, the girl blushes and assumes that the student is going to ask for her hand in marriage, so she says that cultivation levels are not that important. The shy beauty admits that if she falls in love with someone, she is sure that her relatives will support this choice. Zichen decides not to delay and asks if the craftswoman is free in the next few days. The naive girl, unsuspecting, says that if she needs help with the assignment, she will be happy to join in. Touching her face, the warrior explains that he wants to invite his friend to the city of Fenchu to spend time together and attend a performance. Thus, Lin organizes a date, but the beauty is worried that she will not be able to go because of the elder's return. The guy offers a way out in the form of the girl telling her father about the mandatory mission and taking a short break. The beauty leaves and announces that she will find the student later and he is looking forward to meeting her. The swordsman believes that he is doing everything right and a date with Nian will be able to improve her affection and at the same time the level of their relationship. Suddenly, Wanlin and her friends appear in the player's field of vision, calling the Great Master to her. She's amazed that even a late-stage master can't defeat him, but this is empty for Lin, and he asks what the lady wants. The beauty explains that their guild is asking for help clearing the Valley of the Fallen King location on hard mode. However, the guy refuses, and Wanlin chaotically tries to find out what price the master wants for his services. It's not about money, because successful completion depends on the average skills of a team of at least 100 trained people. And there is something else, but Zeiken doesn't finish, and the girl asks what exactly he means. Lin adds that even if he agrees to go to the Valley of the Dead King, the guild needs to raise the group's level first. The player mentally chides himself for almost missing the opportunity to get the spirit stones, but comes to his senses in time. Wanlin quickly offers an alternative in the form of the Nightfall of Ghosts. This seems more possible to the man, although it will also be difficult, and they have a better chance of at least returning alive. With her palms folded in a gesture of supplication, the delighted Wanlin wonders if Lin will participate, and what his conditions are. After remembering something, the warrior asks if the head of their Moonshadows guild will go on the mission they are offering. Now the acquaintance is not so fun anymore, and she asks what's the matter and why their elder is here. Zikin explains that if she leaves, he too is willing to complete this difficult mission for them. Wanlin warns the boy not to think anything like that, because if the landlady's father finds out about it, he will be in trouble. Laziness is sure that nothing will happen to him, and besides, the only thing he needs from the woman is a large amount of money for help. Unexpectedly, an old friend of Zeiken appears from the sidelines, who reports that he has been looking for the player for a long time and has finally found him. The swordsman asks to help him get to the dungeon and to receive 1,000,000 yen as a reward, but the hero has already forgotten who is standing before him. The warrior reminds him that he is the one to whom the master sold the bow last time and does not understand how the interlocutor can forget the one he deceived. Laziness doesn't know how to get out of situations because it doesn't want to help, but it's also impossible to argue, so the guest's appearance is quite unexpected. The hero pulls Wanglin to him and informs him that Wang is late, and the student has promised to help his girlfriend with the same task. After that, the beauty promised to meet the guy in reality, so the player asks if he understood everything correctly. Now he has no choice but to use poor Sue as an excuse to Wang. The guild leader remembers that the warrior was about to get married and was selling his equipment, so he thinks this is the same soulmate. Laziness had already forgotten that back then these two were arguing and threatening each other, because they couldn't share his bow. Goosebumps run down the swordsman's back, and he can't imagine how he could have missed such a detail and what to do about it. Xiao Chen admits that he couldn't resist the wealthy beauty, so he broke up with his previous girlfriend for the sake of convenience. Van is incredibly angry at the woman who crossed his path twice and vows to get revenge soon. Approaching their destination, the young man thanks them for the cover and says that he will definitely repay them when the opportunity arises. With her head down, a saddened Wanglin explains that there is no need to stand on ceremony with her. Groups from different guilds gather near the portal to the Ghost Ridge dungeon, trying to find allies for the mission. Zeiken notes with a smile that the number of players is increasing every time, but this is not a problem for him or his abilities. Wanglin notices his leader in the crowd and loudly announces that she has arrived with useful reinforcements. Zhang Luoyu thanks the master for deciding to join and wonders what terms of cooperation he has prepared this time. The man notes that there are not many of them, only 3, but they are all very important and cannot stand the head of the Moonshadow refusing. First, he wants the right to command the group, and once they enter, they must obey absolutely all orders. Secondly, all equipment obtained in the mission that relates to sword cultivation will belong exclusively to the warrior. And the third condition is a bit personal because the hero wants to borrow some spirit stones, so he advises to think about how much Luoyu is willing to give. The beauty reminds us that spirit stones are important to her society, as their ratio to money has increased significantly. Laziness is not going to borrow for nothing and will return 130% of the amount the girl gives within 5 days. Satisfied with this deal, the guild leader gives 50,000 stones, and Zeiken checks his own account. After making sure that everything went well, the player invites everyone to start the task and go to the dungeon. Also accompanying the 3 of them are Li Jinji at the final stage of Qi development, and healer Chao Shiying at the middle stage of Qi. All participants begin to choose the level of difficulty of the game, and the women are surprised to notice that they are in a hellish stage. The healer suggests that the master must have made a mistake, but he believes that burying the ghost's backbone is not that difficult. The most important part is careful movement and wheel tactics. As long as they stick to them, no problems will arise. Already inside the mission, the swordsman orders you to follow him and not lag behind, and he will do everything possible to successfully complete it. The hero is well acquainted with this location and regrets having to pretend like he's seeing everything for the first time. Chao Shu complains to Wanlin that she is very scared, but the woman convinces her that she should perceive everything as a movie because even they are not real. Loi, who had been walking quietly behind the whole time, somehow mysteriously asks her assistant to turn back. The guild leader makes a frightened expression and announces that the girl has a human hand under her feet. Looking down, Wanglin sees bones that are breaking into pieces in different directions due to her sudden movements and screams. The beauty scolds the teacher, but she just laughs, and this circus makes Zyken feel somehow uncomfortable. Strange stomping sounds are heard ahead of the group, and everyone present, ignoring the conversation, turns towards them. The masters are confronted by a terrifying figure who possesses this dungeon and is trying to get rid of the unwanted guests. Wanlin, who had previously urged the healer to relax, throws herself at her with her arms around her and screams in terror. The spirit orders the 5 people to get out of here immediately if they don't want to lose their lives forever. The ghost's spine is too dangerous. No one can survive except him, the cemetery guard who has been here for hundreds of years. The girls, gathered in a group, tremble with fear and not understanding what to do next, but the leader orders everyone to calm down immediately. Laziness, passing by the guard, confidently walks forward and tells him not to listen to this old man's whining, but to simply move on. The spirit stops the young, confident guy, and if he has already arrived, asks him to do one small favor. From a past life, the warrior knows that the more he ignores the cemetery guard, the faster he can get the desired task. The man says that his wife was killed 20 years ago, and he is here only to find his beloved's things. Unfortunately, the ghost is not strong enough to reach the mountain, so he asks to find a white scarf, and as a reward, players will receive secret equipment. Zekin proudly agrees, and Luoyu adds that such a gift is truly worth the level of hellish complexity. As the group of guild members departs, the watchman thanks them and remains at the foot to wait for good news. After a while, a dark purple fog descends on people, which does not promise to bring anything good with it. Dark forces suddenly emerge from the smoke, and Wanglin is surprised by such a huge number of ghosts, because there are dozens of them here. The head of the Moonshadow Guild reminds them which stage they have chosen, and activating the skill, asks his comrades to defend themselves quickly. Li Jinji says they can leave it to her, and with all her might smashes the crowd of bloodthirsty spirits who know no mercy. The hero has also long since entered the battle, and is clearing a passage for the group on the other side, actively cutting down ghosts. After several attacks, he drops 33 spirit stones, and Wanlin wonders in shock what the man's luck level is. For Xiao Chen, this is just another reason to show off his superiority, so he insists that it is a secret. While he is performing in front of the girls like a peacock, the greatest evil spirit appears behind him and approaches the swordmaster. Laziness realizes his mistake and instantly destroys the enemy with one blow before he gets too close. The spirit boss drops the same white scarf of the deceased cemetery guard woman, which you can use to obtain secret techniques. Wanglin is very happy and says that if they return now, they will still be in the black after the mission. The warrior orders not to even think about it, because if everything were that easy, no one would complete the dungeon quest. If the group wants to get everything sorted out quickly, they must follow him immediately without objection. While moving through the smoky area, they hear a voice from a body hanging from a tree, saying that his life is too bitter. Even the swordsman is surprised by this, and the suicide bomber sees that someone has finally come to keep him company. A strange aroma fills the air, and everyone becomes even more frightened than at the beginning of the guarded cemetery. Old skeletons climb up from the ground on Wanlin and grab the frightened beauty by the legs, who is asking what to do. The swordsman grabs his weapon and, rushing at his opponents, shouts that nothing will help them revive. When this doesn't help, the player uses a secret technique that eliminates attackers in the closest radius. The boy flies onto the creature and orders it to visit his sword, but is surprised to notice that the spirit was able to deviate. Suddenly someone's hand covers Zyken's mouth, saying that he is a big rascal. After the ghost asks if the guest would like to become her daughter's husband, the warrior even becomes a little disappointed in the game.